The power of family planning is agency for women. It's choice for women. It's control. It's autonomy. When you've got that tool in your hands, you can do so much more. I believe that women can do so much more if they're supported, if they've got the tools, if they exist in an environment that enables them to do just that. And family planning does just that.
The power of family planning is the power of choice. The power to choose whether and when to become pregnant is key for women and girls to claim their fundamental right to bodily autonomy.
I believe in the power of family planning. The power of family planning can deliver multiple outcomes. It can reduce maternal mortality by up to 44%, reduce infant and child mortality by up to 38%, empower women to make informed decisions, increase per capita per GDP between 31 to 65%, and together with girl education is the most powerful mitigation strategy for climate change. The power of family planning is in achieving multiple outcomes all at once.
The power of family planning, for me, is that great ability to make sure that women and girls realize their full potential. Individuals are able to determine the number and the size of their families, the number of children that they want, and how they want to space that. I think for me, it's one of the things that really a powerful tool at the individual level, at the household level, really being able to allow those decisions to be made. And for individuals and couples, knowing that there are tools that are available through modern contraceptive methods to be able to empower and equip them with that ability to make those decisions.
I feel the power of family planning is self-care and self-determination on what is good for you as a woman, and how are you projecting your own life as a woman in whatever you're doing. So I just feel it's self-care, and you determine, it's your own decision, the autonomy to decide. So that's, for me, that's the power of family planning, even though I'm beyond that age of, I'm simply advocating for it, but as you can see, I am not a practicing, woman using contraceptives or anything. But with time, I just feel it's really about me as a woman, and how do I see myself 10 years from now? What do I really want to be, so that I'm not held back? Yeah.
The power of family planning is the world where gender equality is a reality, and where women is empowered to decide on her reproductive choices.
The power of family planning is endless possibilities. So not only for the individual, it frees women and girls from the burden of having an unwanted, unintended, or mistimed pregnancy. But it also allows for families to be able to properly take care of the children, send them to school, and make sure that they fulfill their potential.
The power of family planning is actually in its ability to change the lives of individuals, the lives of communities, the lives of whole nations, for the better.
The power of family planning for me is that it has the potential to boomerang national and community development. Without family planning, I do not think there's going to be any development, because women's health is very much related to family planning, and family planning is so much in line with community development. In my work, I have seen so many women that if not because of family planning, they wouldn't have been able to be where they are, they wouldn't have been able to advance their careers especially, and also contribute positively to the community as they are now. The power of family planning is really the power of development.
So family planning, I really consider it a superpower that gives women and men and couples the control that they need over that aspect of their lives, reproduction, so that they can make plans for all aspects of their lives. If they want to, more education, if they want to work, all those different things, it just gives them control.
So for me, when you ask me the power of family planning, I feel like the power of family planning is the empowerment. I think as a young person and as a woman, it has really, really empowered me in making decisions with regard to my reproductive health, whether I want to have babies, when I want to have babies, and even how I want to have babies. And I think that's very important, for me as a woman and where I come from.
En fait, je suis médecin, donc j'ai eu à pratiquer comme médecin et comme médecin-chef de district à gérer des programmes de planification familiale au niveau dans les zones rurales et même urbaines. Juste quelque chose que j'avais vécu personnellement, j'avais eu à recevoir une dame d'une trentaine d'années, 32 ans, et qui avait 13 gestes, c'est-à-dire elle était tombée enceinte 13 fois et 11 fois elle a accouché, donc 11 parts. Et elle a eu à perdre des fausses couches pour 2 fois. Et pour sa dernière grossesse, elle a eu une hypertension artérielle à l'issue de sa grossesse. Et quand on a regardé son tableau, on s'est dit que si elle tombe à nouveau en état de grossesse, elle peut risquer sa vie.
Le pouvoir de la planification familiale aujourd'hui, c'est de permettre à des millions de femmes, de villes comme de campagnes, de pouvoir avoir facilement accès aux services de PF et pouvoir contrôler leur santé de la reproduction. Et pouvoir échanger librement de leurs droits reproductifs avec leur communauté, avec leur mari, de choisir avec qui aller et quand est-ce qu'elles veulent aussi faire des enfants.
Family planning is life-saving intervention.
The power of family planning is to reducing maternal mortality.
Power of family planning is empowerment of the individual.
The power of family planning is choice and autonomy.
So to me, family planning means life in its complementarity.
Well, the power of family planning is actually empowerment, especially for women and girls. With family planning, we as women, girls, are actually have a lot, it's like an untapped resource that we didn't see. Like you can choose for your, it's a choice for yourself, for your body. Yeah, so it's powerful. It's more of empowerment beyond just education.
I always relate this to my own individual story, seeing my mom being able to access these commodities and understanding the importance of accessing them and planning for her family, something that helped her raise us the best way she could as compared to some of her peers.
The power of family planning is to support women to make choices about the way they want to progress in their life. They may want to delay a pregnancy so they can advance a little bit further in their careers and then be able to step back later and have a child, and for it not to have a detrimental impact in how they progress in the future.
The power of family planning is the courage to confront the challenges in the field and continue to make a difference.
And family planning is one of the very systematic window that the government can use to deliver more and more for youth, and especially the generation to come, and to achieve sustainable development goal and ICPD goals and everything.
Hi, my name is Janelle Vayin, and as a reproductive justice advocate, I often think about how fortunate I am to have the power to decide my future. For me, deciding to use the implant was one of the most powerful decisions that I have made. I started using the implant while I was in college because I wanted to enjoy my sexual life and not worry about having to pause my studies. My grandmother and mother did not have access to modern contraceptives, and I can only imagine what their lives would have been like if they had the choice. I think having access to modern contraceptives allowed me to be able to obtain my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. This is why I think access to universal family planning can have a multi-generational impact on communities across the world.
Meaningful access to family planning services and reproductive health actually means as a youth I am able to practice safe sex and avoid any unwanted pregnancies or any consequences that may come with lack of access to these services. Actually, if I do not have access to sexual reproductive health services and family planning, that means as a youth, I am not able to enjoy my sexual rights, or I'm not able to enjoy my reproductive health needs. And as a result of this, if you look at it in the long run, where access of these services are limited, it means there'll be poor planning even at the household level. And this presents a risk at large the population, because we may be at a risk of getting population outburst. And in the long run, when you look at our economy may suffer a state where there is distribution imbalance, where resources are getting constrained, and whatever the government is providing in terms of service delivery may not be effective. And because of this, literally, I feel there's need to encourage our government to make family planning and reproductive health services at the center of discussion, so that we are able to look at our demographic in a country in a way that we can have a projection that can be easily understood, and that the government can plan for its population with a bigger picture of what is happening.
Access to a wide range of contraceptive options has been a powerful force in my life because of the healthy timing and spacing of pregnancy that I have witnessed among adolescent girls and young women. Losing access to family planning would subject us to poor mental and reproductive health outcomes and financial difficulties. Universal access to family planning reduces the dependency ratio, therefore positively impacting the community's economy. Centering family planning discussions is our powerful approach towards universal health coverage because family planning saves lives of adolescent girls and young women. Family planning reduces the financial hardships of individuals, families, and communities. Thank you.
Family planning represents one of the most crucial pillars on autonomy, not only regarding to the body, but also the possibility to decide for one's future. Reproductive autonomy is a key capacity to achieve reproductive freedom and improve women's agency, which entails creating employment opportunities, reducing gender-based violence, and strengthening women's decision-making power, and increasing the level of knowledge of them. All of that could contribute to better access to family planning services and above all to reduce unmet needs, thus improve overall, including maternity. In non-health benefits, contraception is related to the expansion of educational opportunities and women empowerment, but also sustainable population growth and socioeconomic development of countries. Thank you.
The power of family planning is improving lives, empowering communities, and transforming systems in one swing. And in terms of my personal story, I like to say that I take the issue of family planning and indeed by extension maternal health very personal. At a young age of 6 years, where I really didn't know what life was about and what was going on, I witnessed my mom stand in a pool of her blood where she had postpartum hemorrhage. I didn't know what to do. All I knew that this was blood. I didn't know who to call on. And that picture is just still fresh in my mind. And I'm so glad that there was someone that came to our rescue and she was able to get help. I can imagine how many women in communities, in villages, that are experiencing that as we speak and that may not have access. So I consider access to family planning as access to maternal health. And I take it personal that every woman should be able to have access to the care that she needs to survive and thrive.
For me, the power of family planning at family level is economic empowerment of women. And at national level, the demographic dividend. For me, those two, I would say, the power of family planning.
The power of family planning to me is that it has two powerful.
Hello everyone, welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programming. And today we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we hear it one more time for our speakers, please? Woo! Are young people here? Good. Good morning and welcome to this morning's youth plenary. My name is Francis Oko Ama. I'm currently the FP 2030 Youth Focal Point in Ghana, working and supporting different youth-led organizations, Young Leaders for Change, Youth Community, AFRIAN, and a host of other youth-led organizations. This morning, we welcome you to the plenary. Why are we here? What are we here to do? Now, this morning's plenary is dubbed Youth Leaders Make Bold Moves. Young people innovate, collaborate, and accelerate. We are here creating space to show you where young people take the driver's seat, sharing stories and lessons learned in innovation, collaboration on adolescent, youth, sexual and reproductive health and rights as they accelerate towards the future we want. As we accelerate towards the future we want in adolescent, youth, sexual and reproductive health and rights. Now, before you hear the amazing stories and work of my speakers, I know you all have a dream. What would be your ideal dream for young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights? Think about it. Maybe as you hear the amazing stories and work and dreams of my speakers and how they are making change in their community, that will inspire yours as well. And then take notes. We'll have a time to share our dreams and know how we'll get there from the amazing stories. Now, before my speakers speak, I would want to introduce them to you. And please, with a round of applause, we have Alison from USA. Alison will be talking to us about engaging men and boys in sexual and reproductive health. Please, a round of applause for Alison. Woo! We also have Benel Agosu from Benin. He will be talking about family planning in humanitarian settings. One more time. And then we have Nzisa Kiyoko, who will be looking at leveraging digital health in advancing young people's sexual and reproductive health. Please give it to it. Nice one. Reaching the hardest to reach population is a key dream for Fura Shepa from YPA Nepal. Please give it up for him. One of the key challenges for youth-led organization is participatory funding. And Dr. Hassan from Yemen will talk to that right now. Dr. Hassan, please, a round of applause. Now, showcasing youth leadership manifests in different ways. Laura Ramos Thomas will show us the unique way in which she shows leadership in her work in Brazil and Latin America. Please give it up for Laura. Now that you're ready, I want you to think about it one more time. What is your dream for adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health? And how do we get there? We'll hear from the stories from my colleagues right now. Alison, in the next 10 seconds, will share with you how she engages men and boys in adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health. Shall we give it one more time for Alison as she takes the stage to share her story on how she engages men and boys? Please welcome Alison.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Alison Hoover. I'm from the USA, and I am a vasectomy researcher. I know everyone in this room and watching online is working to ensure everyone has the knowledge, products, and services they need to realize their fullest reproductive rights, and I focus on the ways in which men and boys can be part of that goal. Recently, I was having dinner before flying out here to Thailand, talking with some friends about this conference and the research I would be presenting on vasectomy. And one of the men at the table absolutely peppered me with questions like, what is a vasectomy? Is it painful? And where does the sperm go after a vasectomy? And don't get me wrong, I'm a pretty fun dinner guest, but men need other ways of getting this information and getting their really important, really honest questions answered about their own fertility. Outside of HIV testing, there's really very little conversation with men about reproductive health for all. And in that space and that lack of understanding grows discomfort and grows misconceptions about the procedure and its side effects. And we talk with women and girls about tubal ligation, even when it's not the right option for them at this moment, because we know one day it might be. And they deserve knowing that information and being given the opportunity to plan. And we don't really do that for men and boys. We don't talk to them about their options, which at this point are still really vasectomy and condoms. So we educate women and girls, we expect them to manage contraception, and we continue to burden them with the primary responsibility for it. And the result of that is that 27% of the contraceptive method mix is tubal ligation, and vasectomy is just 3%. We don't educate men, we don't hold them accountable, and inequality in family planning grows as a result. I hear it all the time in my work in clinics and ministries and the halls of international conferences like this one. Men won't get vasectomies. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when we don't give them the education and the access to the services they need to be accountable and be part of the conversation. The other truth is that engaging men and maintaining them in the conversation does not mean less money or less focus on women. It engages them, it helps them share the contraceptive burden. How can we reach our goals of universal health coverage and family planning when we're only talking to half of the population? Engaging men is going to be absolutely critical for us to get to where we want to go. It is also a really just and worthy cause to think differently about having men in the conversation in the wake of changing legal landscapes around abortion, particularly where I'm from in the US. This is a big moment of change globally. You think about the resonating echoes of COVID-19, of global economic instability, of ongoing environmental crises, and those echoes are really resonating, and they're changing the way people envision their own fertility and plan their families. Last year when I was in Bolivia, a man was at a local Marie Stopes clinic getting his vasectomy. He's 24, he has no children, and he talked about wanting to get a vasectomy for environmental reasons and feeling really concerned about the limited resources future generations may have, as well as the limited social assistance that was available in Bolivia should his partner become pregnant. Another man at this same clinic, also getting a vasectomy, also didn't have children. One of his parents died unexpectedly, and he's caring for younger siblings. And for him, he felt like he was already a father. He already was playing that fatherly role. He was already caring for children. But his path to a non-traditional fatherhood really is not acknowledged in our traditional thinking and understanding about who is a candidate for a vasectomy. So it's upon us. This is the moment, this is the time to think differently about the way that we engage men. It is an imperative, really, that we think critically about engaging the other half of the population as we advance towards these goals. We need to engage men, we need to hold them accountable to work with us towards achieving these shared goals. As a demonstration of accountability, we also need to work to expand their contraceptive options and to make education and services available for the methods that are out there, which right now is still really vasectomy. So vasectomy is an act of love. It is absolutely imperative upon us to engage men in this pursuit, and it's a step we really can't afford not to take. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Alison. That's a bold move. Let me hear you say, that's a bold move. A bold move. Working to engage men and boys in adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health and rights. And for a young woman like her working with men in my culture where patriarchy, and in a lot of our cultures where men, dominate a lot of spaces, it takes balls. And that's a bold move. Thank you very much. Now, we'll move, just before we move to our second speaker, Benel, he will be speaking in French. So there is simultaneous translation available. So kindly make sure you use your headsets for translation because we will need it. And I'd like to quickly announce that as much as we have our amazing speakers here, we also had challenges engaging with some of our young people due to some restrictions and challenges. For example, we need a replacement last minute because of visa issues. And as much as representation matters and we are grateful to the Thai government and all partners, we still need to push forward in making sure that representation is really strong at every front for young people. And so Dr. Patrice, who is from the Caribbean, could not make it due to some challenges that she experienced. And we acknowledge her work, and later in the session, we'll get to all of us, we all get to acknowledge her work as we move on. So thank you very much. As we get ready to hear from Benel, he is about to tell us how he works in providing family planning in humanitarian settings. He's sharing his inspiring story, and I want all of us to pay attention and listen to him working to achieve his dream. Ladies and gentlemen, Benel Agosu. A round of applause.
Thanks, Oko. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je suis Beniel Agossou. Je suis médecin. Je suis Youth Leader à l'unité de coordination du partenariat de Ouagadougou et je viens du Bénin. L'histoire que je vais vous raconter est une histoire réelle. C'est l'histoire d'une amie, Awa. Awa est une jeune fille de 16 ans, porteuse d'un handicap. Elle vit à Saya. Saya, c'est un petit village d'Afrique. Saya traverse une crise sécuritaire, politico-ethnique, une inondation et depuis peu, un pic d'Ebola. Un jour, Awa se rend au centre de santé du village pour adopter une méthode contraceptive. Malheureusement pour elle, elle apprend que la seule sage-femme du village a abandonné son poste à cause du contexte humanitaire très difficile. 6 mois plus tard, ma chère amie Awa se rend compte qu'elle est enceinte. Ne pouvant garder la grossesse et vu le cadre légal très contraignant dans son pays, elle recourt à un avortement clandestin, dont elle garde les séquelles jusqu'aujourd'hui. Comme Awa, c'est 600 millions d'adolescents et de jeunes qui vivent dans des contextes humanitaires et très difficiles. Pour eux et elles, c'est la croix et la bannière pour accéder aux services de santé sexuelle et reproductive. Meurtrie par son sort, Awa décide de faire en sorte que d'autres filles du village ne connaissent la même désillusion ou le même sort. Elle intègre alors une organisation de jeunes très active en santé sexuelle et reproductive dans Saya. C'est l'organisation MEL10. Malheureusement, son envie de changer les choses se heurte à 2 obstacles. Premier obstacle, dans le cluster santé, on estime que les jeunes n'ont pas le droit de participer aux réunions. Deuxième obstacle, le cluster santé estime que la santé de la reproduction n'est pas une priorité et que les ressources ne suffisent même pas. Mais malgré tout ça, Meldis et Awa mettent en œuvre un programme de visite à domicile, des focus groups, des storytelling pour partager avec leurs pairs jeunes les informations sur la santé sexuelle et reproductive et où ils peuvent se procurer de tels services. Ils profitent également des campagnes de distribution de vivres pour sensibiliser les pères jeunes sur l'usage des préservatifs. Ils mènent également un plaidoyer à l'endroit de diverses parties prenantes afin que les services de santé sexuelle et reproductive soient présents et adaptés aux adolescents et jeunes. Vu toute l'énergie et les résultats probants que AWA et son organisation Meldis ont, désormais, le cluster santé se rend compte de l'importance d'inclure les jeunes dans la réponse humanitaire. En conclusion, vous convenez avec moi que même en situation normale, nous les adolescents et les jeunes avons du mal à accéder aux services de santé sexuelle et reproductive. Et les obstacles sont exacerbés, augmentés en situation de crise humanitaire. Voilà pourquoi je pense qu'il est très important d'impliquer et d'avoir un engagement significatif des jeunes tout au long de la préparation à la réponse à la situation humanitaire, afin de connaître nos réels besoins et d'y répondre efficacement. Pour y parvenir, il est impérieux d'investir dans les organisations locales de jeunesse. Et il est tout aussi important d'intégrer la santé sexuelle et reproductive des adolescents et des jeunes dans l'intervention humanitaire, mais avec une approche multisectorielle et en utilisant plusieurs points d'entrée, comme l'éducation, la gestion de l'hygiène menstruelle, les violences basées sur le genre, l'eau, l'hygiène et l'assainissement. Je vais finir en disant à vous, chers aînés, de ne laisser personne de côté et de continuer à croire davantage en nous les jeunes. Et chers collègues jeunes, continuons à démontrer au monde que nous sommes stratégiques, résilients et que nous n'avons pas de limites. Au-delà de notre engagement symbolique, je pense que nous sommes la solution. Oui, nous les jeunes, nous sommes la solution. Oko, you will leave me to tell my conclusion in English. I say that, dear elders, please continue to trust in you, in us, young people. And dear youth colleagues, we must continue to show the world that we are resilient, strategic, creative, and we don't have limits. And beyond the symbolic engagement, we are the solution. Young are the solution to most of problems in SRH. Thanks.
A round of applause for Benel. Indeed, we are the solution. And the story of our, as he shared, is the reality of many young girls around the world. Please give it up for Benel one more time. Now, as these amazing young people share their dreams and how they are working in their communities, we believe it's also helping you to realize what your dreams are. We would have a special moment where we'll all be able to project what our dreams are on the screens. I would love to see your dream as well, to see how you are working, making bold moves to get there. Our next speaker is looking at leveraging digital health and innovation of SRH to the next level. We know how young people's population keep growing and how we are taking advantage of digital health. Nziza Kiyoko shares her story from her region. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a round of applause for Nziza. Woo!
Good morning. My name is Nzisa Kyoko. I am a design researcher at Y Labs and I work in Rwanda. So at Y Labs, we design digital solutions to improve young people's health and well-being. We believe that there should be no design for youth without youth. I grew up in Kenya in a setting where we did not talk about sexual reproductive health because it's linked to bad manners. So thus, I strive every single day to ensure that young people like me have autonomy, choice, and agency in their sexual and reproductive health decisions. Youth should never feel ashamed to ask questions in order to make those choices. A better world for youth is one where a child does not have to find their own way, the way I did to learn about SRH. Whatever age they are, they have access to age-appropriate information. Sexuality education should not be accidental, it should be intentional. Africa has the largest growing youth population in the world, and they are increasingly a digital generation. Since 2010, internet access in Africa has increased by 600%. The digital revolution is happening, and it offers us an opportunity to reach youth with products that provide private, interactive, and engaging SRH education and linkage to care. So, what does the future of sexuality education look like? I'll share 2 digital solutions that I've been designing at Y Labs that are supporting better SRH outcomes for young people. First, Cyber Rwanda is a digital education and self-care platform that we designed with over 1,000 Rwandan youth. It helps young people access information and order SRH products in schools or youth centers, on tablets, on school laptops, or on phones. As a young girl, if I had been able to use a platform like this to access products, I would have made different choices. Imagine if I had been able to order emergency contraception from my school, if I had the solution at my fingertips. Though more youth have access to the internet, access is not evenly distributed. Data is expensive, and young people don't want to download more applications. It's not just about creating a digital solution. It's considering how all youth are going to be reached. Equity must be at the forefront of digital design, and it must be considered from day one. So, how do we ensure equity? How do we design for a range of literacy, data, and device access for the youth? In Kenya, we designed Ask Doki, a WhatsApp chatbot to educate youth on comprehensive sexuality education. We built upon channels that young people were already using, and their top concerns were privacy and the cost of data. So WhatsApp became an ideal platform for us as it's offered freely and can be accessed on other people's phones with no traces. The chatbot offered multiple content options which catered to various levels of access, literacy, and comprehension for young people. This careful consideration of young people in their diversity is critical in order to equitably reach the young people at their point of need. I've shared today some examples of how we can design with inclusivity and equity in mind. We have to consult, listen to the youth, adapt to their needs, and where it calls for, create complementary solutions to ensure inclusivity. We cannot continue to solve in a silo because of the differences we have in our context and the audiences we are serving. I leave you with one more thing. Young people like me are the future of digital design. We are skilled, we are ready, and we understand this young generation's needs and priorities because we are part of them. We should lead the way in reaching other young people and ensuring that the solutions we are creating are bridging that gap, ensuring no one is left behind, and is answering to the needs of young people. A better world for young people is one where youth-driven solutions are a norm, not the exception. Asante sana.
Indeed, young people are the present and future leaders in the digital revolution. A round of applause for Nzisa. That's a bold move. Let me hear you say, that's a bold move. Now, in listening to all these amazing bold moves from my speakers, engaging men and boys, family planning in humanitarian settings, and leveraging on digital health and innovation of SRH to the next level, one other bold move we are about to hear is reaching hard-to-reach populations. Fura Sherpa works in Nepal. He works with the deaf youth, people who are with a hearing impaired. They are so close to us, yet they are far and hard to reach. Let's bring our attention as we write our dreams and hear from these stories. With a resounding round of applause, please give it up for Fura.
Thank you, Oku. Namaste, everyone. My name is Fura Galjin Sherpa, and I am from YPR, Nepal. So I have been working as a peer educator with YPR Nepal since 2014. Working as a peer educator as a SRHR expert, it has been a wonderful journey, and making difference has been one of the beautiful things that I have done in my community and other people. Well, I belong to one of the ethnic group called Sherpa, the people who live nearby Mount Everest. Being as a tourism background, what I believe is SRHR is one of the important component and information should be shared. So beside this youth advocacy and other things, I also advocate SRHR in a peer-to-peer approach to my people in mountain area. So as we all know that CSC is one of the component of SRHR. So I, along with my team, we have been working with people with disability, especially on deaf young people. As it's very much challenging to work with people with disability, especially on deaf young people, there are various kind of challenges that we face till now. So like, what can be the challenges, right? So like the first thing is like, for people with disability, like SRHR is not much priority. Rather, their priority is focused on education, getting a proper job, or getting a quality of life. So since SRHR is like not well introduced to deaf young people, so it's quite difficult for them to bring to SRHR and CSC. Another like difficulty is when it comes to people with disability, like the resources and the allocation of budget are very much less. As like whenever like everyone do any program, like we see very less disability. Also this in family planning conference, like I see very less disability. So like whenever we do anything, like it doesn't include disability. So wherever we go, I see that problem. Also like for deaf people, like there are very less trained resource person. For example, like there are very less interpreter who understand the trauma of SRHR. That's like one of the very tough for us. And another is like, despite Nepal has very good rules and regulation policies for SRHR, but implementation has become one of the major problem. As like whenever it comes to making the sustainable and making a difference, like implementation is one of the key. So despite all these challenges, like we along with my team, also our partner, YPR Asia Pacific has been supporting us to promote SRHR among deaf young people. So in order to like attract young people to SRHR and CSC, like it's quite challenging and tough. So how we have been doing advocacy is that whenever we organize any like SRHR program, we link with sports. So sports can be the best way to link our advocacy. Whenever there is sports, young people participation are high. So like we link, as I said, like we link sports with our advocacy. Link with our advocacy, young participation are high. So that's how we attract young people in our session. So like we believe upon making like sustainable, right? So we provide training to deaf peer educator. So once they receive our training, they goes back to their community and they provide this training to their deaf community. So what we want to do is like we want to make our program sustainable. So as I said, like everyone, like if you are doing advocacy for young people, please include sports so that young people participation are very high. So like I see like many people here, so I humbly request that like since I work for people with disability in deaf sector, I request everyone if you like focus, please include like disability in your working sector too. So at last I want to say that don't wait for the inspiration, be the inspiration. Thank you.
Be the inspiration indeed. Include people living with disabilities in all forms of programming. Thank you very much, Fura. Now, I hope you are still taking notes and documenting your dream. What is your ideal solution? What is your dream for young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights? We will be projecting in a minute and you get to share with us. Now, moving on to the next speaker, working on sexual and reproductive health and rights in conflicts and controversial countries can be very challenging. But Dr. Hassan has been very bold and leading change in his country, Yemen. So this time, I want everyone, please, with a resounding round of applause, welcome Dr. Hassan. He's taking the podium. Please give him the presidential applause he needs. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Abdul Jabbar Hassan, Chairman of International Youth Council Yemen, IYCY. First, please let me to tell you the journey to attend ICFP 2022. Going through different countries to get a visa and everything to get here is a success story.
Round of applause for that.
We are at International Youth Council Yemen, IYCY. We have many impact successful stories in the ground by contributing to empower, build the capacity and involvement all the young people in our project and programs. Since 7 years, the humanitarian crisis in Yemen become worse, and even the worst in the world in our country. IYCY being a part of this by building the capacity and provide services for the young people, especially in area of sexual and reproductive health, right and justice, to play a positive role in decision making and become active in their communities. So we are so proud that we passed numerous challenges to reach young people who are in real need. IYCY recognize young people as leaders, experts in their own lives, and we strive to engage them in participatory, including youth-centered approaches to ensure that our work truly responds to their needs and priorities. As a matter of fact, the situation in Yemen on adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health is like math. Our country is very conservative, religious, and also conflict that make the situation is very, very complicated. Coming from a conservative country and society, we're talking about topics like sexual and reproductive health issues is taboo. Limited funding and limitation intervention in the reproductive health areas, and how to make safe decisions while going through implementation programs on the reproductive health, as well as ongoing conflict, political instability, displacement, and changes we would experience at youth negos focusing in adolescent and youth sex and reproductive health right and justice remains an obstacle and challenges to enabling legal protection and rights for young people in MENA region and specifically in our country, Yemen. This is why participatory grant making is very important for youth-led organizations in similar situation and contexts. Participatory grant making is how the donor make youth participate in their funding and in their process, also in their implementing the project and programs. To reflect the real needs of the youth in the ground. This improves the link between youth-led organizations, donors, and implementing partners. It helps cover a lot of gaps, like fulfilling requirements of donors and due diligence process. To improve participatory funding, donors can foster, enforce, or support implementing partners to build the capacity of youth-led organizations to provide funding, for example, with smaller amounts, while providing support for structures needed for funding that are linked to donor requirements. This will facilitate in-kind technical and financial support for youth-led organizations to address critical sexual and reproductive health rights needs of the adolescent and youth. Because when you ask them what they need, they will give you what they really need. This becomes a win for everybody, donors, implementing partner, and youth-led organization, and most importantly, adolescent and youth. I therefore call on all international donors, governments, and partners to adopt participatory funding to support adolescent and youth sex and reproductive health rights programs and youth-led organizations in Yemen and also in countries like Yemen. Finally, please let them know. Thank you very much.
A round of applause, indeed. Let them know. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan. That's a bold move, guys. Working in a country like Yemen and talking about, he says, the situation of adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health in Yemen is like maths. Conservative country, conflict, it's complicated. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Dr. Hassan once again. Now, we are about to hear from Laura Ramos Thomas. Just before she comes, I hope you're hearing from the dreams. You're also documenting your dream, your ideal situation. And we'll discuss how we will all work together to get there. So just to remind you that kindly write your dream down. We'll project on the screen when it's time for you to share, okay? Laura Ramos Thomas is going to share how showcasing youth leadership by way of our differences has become a strength for her in Latin America and Brazil. Please welcome Laura Ramos Thomas. A round of applause, please.
Thank you. So I'm a European sexuality educator, and like Oko was saying, I am based in Brazil. Now, for me, it's an honor to be representing the Latin American and Caribbean region, but I have to admit that I'm doing so with a little bit of reservation, and I'm going to tell you why. I do live in Latin America. I've been living there for 5 years and working there, but I'm actually, like I said, from Europe. I was born in Germany, and I was raised in Germany, 17 years there, but I was born into a Spanish family, and so I consider myself Spanish. Now, I'm used to never quite belonging. In Spain, I've always been the German, and in Germany, I've always been the Spaniard. And so now I just simplify and I say that I'm European. I'm also white, I'm cisgender, and I'm heterosexual. Now, working in Latin America, I set up a business that I called Tabu Tabu. We tackle taboos around sexuality. And the communities that I work in are very different to me. I work in BIPOC communities, both in Brazil and in Honduras. And obviously the perspectives that the people that I work with bring are very different to my own. The thing that we focus on is creating safe spaces so that we can exchange and learn together rather than me coming in as a teacher and showing what they need to learn. I think that's very important in the work that we do. The people that I work with are mainly women and youth, and they are not all fully alphabetized, they are not fully literate, and they have been geographically, ethnically, socially, educationally marginalized, often over generations. So I've thought really long and hard about the role that it is that I take when, as a white person, I work in BIPOC communities. Also, as a descendant of Spaniards, of colonizers, the role that I can take, or I should avoid taking, when working with descendants of oppressed. When I step into these spaces as an educator, I very much focus on not stepping in as a teacher, and I focus on engaging the people that I work with and creating a space where it's an exchange. I think that when we are able to step back from our own lenses and listen and give other people's perspectives an opportunity to shine, that's when we can learn from each other and when we can have the kind of shifts in perspective that we need to be able to achieve real, true social change and work together collaboratively. And creating those spaces can take a minute, you know. I think especially when there's visual differences and obvious differences when we're working with people with disabilities and we're a person that does not have a disability or does not share the same disability. And when we have different lenses, it can get really awkward and it can be very tense. And sometimes it's easier to let it just be an elephant in the room. It can feel easier. But what I found is that when we acknowledge those differences, we can find common ground in the fact of in how those differences make us feel, and we can overcome them and work together despite them. So I think that everybody's lenses have a place in a conversation, even when, for example, I bring my own perspectives into an audience or a group that doesn't necessarily share my own views. So we're on the last day of ICFP 2022, and it's been a space where we have faced the age-related elephant in the room head-on, you know? It's been a space where, for me, I know it's been an honor to speak to a lot of you, and it's been an opportunity that I wouldn't have had if youth had not been actively integrated into this conference the way that it has been. But I think as we step outside of this ICFP space, we return to our own contexts, and even as we think towards the next ICFP, we should make a conscious effort to step back from our own perspectives and our own lenses and acknowledge that these lenses have limitations and actively seek to bring other lenses into the conversation. To listen with purpose, I think, is really important. And when we do that, we'll be able to get a shift in perspective and learn from each other far more, the way I think that this space has started to shift the conversation. So the call to action that I bring to all of us, but especially to the non-youth in this audience, is to not impose our own views when we're designing for others, and to know that, yes, your lenses count and your experiences are valid, but they are not the only thing that's valid. They're not the only angle that's valid. And I think that when we step back humbly from our own and bring and lift other voices into the conversation, that's when we can combine our views and move forward to designing and implementing something that's truly going to work long term. So ICFP was not a space for youth, and it was not a space by youth, but it was a space with youth. And I hope that we can take this dynamic that we've created in ICFP 2022 beyond this week of sharing, beyond this week of learning and unlearning, and that we can truly collaborate and integrate all stakeholders in all the work that we do so that our efforts are truly long-lasting. Gracias, obrigada, thank you.
Thank you very much. Laura, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from our speakers, their dreams and how they are working to get there. We will hear from you in a bit, but I would just want all of us to just give it up for all of them one more time, please. A round of applause, all young people. Thank you. Now, you've shared your dreams with us and how you're working. I would want to have a few perspectives from you. in achieving these wins that you've shared with us today, we know there are challenges. Fura shared some of the challenges. Dr. Hassan shared. Pretty much every one of you shared. Now, how do we now get to where we want to go? Because our audience will be sharing their dreams in a bit. It is important for all of us to know, how do we get there from now? Zisa?
How we get there is by including the young people in the conversation from the beginning. We are designing for them. So we do not have the voice to say we know what they want. They know what they want, and they're going to be loud about talking about it. And if we do not acknowledge that from the young people, then we are producing things that will not work for them. So it's important to put their voices at the front center of everything we're going to be doing. For example, something that we are doing, we include young people in a technical working group so that their voices are heard from the technical perspective, from the creative perspective, and thus end up with solutions that are working for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Include young people from the beginning, co-create with them throughout the stage of evaluation. Now, we move straight to hear what your dreams are. In about 5 seconds, right on the big screens, you'll be able to share with us what your dreams are. Are you ready? Great. Now, just scan the QR code quickly and share your dream. What is your dream for adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health and rights? What is your ideal situation? These are some of the things we'll be working on. Some of us are already working on it. Post ICFP 2022. What is your ideal situation? What is your dream for young people? Whoa, there are a lot of dreams coming in right now. Keep your dreams coming. Universal access, medication, abortion, or demand. Very well. That every young person can make their choice. Very good. Fully implementation of GRA by action by 2030. A dream where young people have the liberty and capacity to be economically dependable in order to have full choice. Very, very important. Male involvement. Non-judgmental access. Youth-friendly services. God, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Wow. It keeps coming. And we're going to share these dreams with all of you, all attendees of ICFP, the International Youth Subcommittee, and all partners who share. So we will get to collaborate, innovate, and accelerate some of these actions and dreams you're sharing with us right from here. Now, before we end this panel, in fact, we are not ending, we are transitioning to the next phase of how we get to go to where we want to go to achieve these dreams that we are sharing. But before that, I would want everyone with a standing ovation, please. Can you please give a round of applause? I know there are young people in the room. Please give a resounding scream, shout, clap for all our speakers. Please give it up for them. They've done amazingly well. Keep your dreams coming. Very good. Thank you very much. My colleague Pritia will be joining us briefly to share with us how we get to achieve these dreams. So while my speakers walk off the stage, of course, with a round of applause, let's also welcome Pritia from the GRA. Please give her a round of applause. Yes. Please come.
Young people are creating lasting change in their community. Get involved in the 1.8 campaign and let us know how we can elevate your work to advance this agenda together.
Youth, you are the energy of the family planning movement of today and tomorrow. You're teaching us to listen, to make room for your expertise, to share power. Tell us how we can partner with you to build a future of equality and sexual and reproductive rights for all.
Young people represent a significant population in the world. Please let us know how to elevate your voices.
Young people are leaders of today. Let us know what shifting of power means to you and how we can make that happen.
Youth are at the forefront of advocacy to advance sexual and reproductive health and rights. Let us know how we can support you with the evidence to ground your advocacy initiatives.
Young people deserve family planning services that are youth-friendly and that promote their bodily autonomy and choice. Let us know how we can work with you to achieve this.
The leaders of today, they are dynamic, they are powerful, they are imaginative, they have voices that need to be heard, and we want to make sure that that happens. So let us know how to partner with you for your voice to be heard.
Dear distinguished guests, officials, delegates, and everyone who is watching us live stream right now, a very warm good morning. I am Dr. Preeti Shakya from Nepal. I am a physician, a writer, and impact entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Project Inner Hands, a menstrual hygiene initiative, as well as the founder of Matri Nepal, a non-profit organization working to advance maternal health in Nepal. I'm also associated with World Health Organization Nepal as a surveillance medical officer. It is an absolute honor for me to stand here and speak. It is an absolute honor for me to stand here and speak on behalf of 42 youth leaders who are behind the making of the global roadmap of action as we launch the same in this esteemed platform. Never before have there been so many young people in the human history. Therefore, how we meet the needs and aspirations of this population will define our common future. For millions of young people around the world, the onset of adolescence brings not only changes to their bodies, but also new vulnerabilities, particularly in the area of sexual and reproductive health. Adolescents and youth face significant barriers undermining their sexual and reproductive health rights and justice, including a lack of access to comprehensive sexuality education and essential services. As I speak, somewhere in the world, a young girl child under the age of 18 is getting married off. And somebody, somewhere, is being denied of access to essential sexual and reproductive health services based on their religious grounds. And in another corner of the world, restrictive policies and laws could be limiting a young person's right to expression of opinion on topics that the government finds sensitive. And in some, youths are denied the role in having a say at the decisions that most affect their lives. Close to 90% of this youth population live in developing countries. What is more, these numbers are expected to continue to grow, especially in the least developed regions. With such numbers, sustainable development cannot be achieved unless we involve young people and create a space that allows them to reach and unleash their full potential. Through the Sustainable Development Goals, governments and international community have an unprecedented but fleeting opportunity to enrich the lives of young people and support the development of their capacities. The vital role of meaningful youth participation in research, policy, and practice is finally gaining global acknowledgement, yet too often, youth experiences within the sexual and reproductive health sector are being left out or being tokenized. Seeing youth as valued and active drivers as opposed to passive receivers is an integral part of shifting our approach on meaningful youth engagement and partnerships. History has seen examples of how this positive engagement, along with young people's energy, enthusiasm, and passion, inspires social change movements. For example, adolescents and young adults have led movements for democracy in Asia and Middle East, LGBTQIA rights, gender equality, and action on climate change. For this reason, youth-led organizations and networks are co-creating the first ever youth-led Youth, Adolescent, Sexual and Reproductive Health Rights and Justice Global Roadmap for Action. Since the past few months, youth leaders from 42 thought leadership organizations have been working relentlessly on a document which will act as a comprehensive guideline for governments, donors, international NGOs, civil society, and youth-led organizations to prioritize young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights. This roadmap outlines specific recommendations and strategies to address the challenges in the realm of SRHR, including greater investment in comprehensive sexuality education, removing legal barriers to accessing contraception, addressing gender-based violence, promoting sexual diversity, and increasing youth participation in decision-making process. The ICFP and 120 under 40, the new generation of family planning leaders, with the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Institute for Population and Reproductive Health and BARE, assembles a group of youth-led initiatives, thought leaders in the co-creation of the Let Them Know Global Roadmap of Action. Members of the thought leadership group were organizations, collectives, networks, and entities led by youth who demonstrate experience in SRHR, gender-based violence, LGBTQIA rights, and meaningful adolescent youth engagement, and represent diverse geographical areas. The Let Them Know Global Roadmap for Action is the first ever youth-led global vision and priority document for adolescents and youth sexual and reproductive health rights and justice that brings together youth voices from all around the globe to outline a new vision for adolescent youth sexual reproductive health rights and justice. It sets our vision, priorities, and recommended actions for the year 2030, showing unity in the expression of young people's sexual reproductive health rights, needs, and values across the world. These are the list of 42 thought leader organizations that were involved in the making of the Global Roadmap for Action. Can we please hear a round of applause for them? The development of Global Roadmap for Action was guided on the 6 basic principles of inclusion, equity, youth engagement and accountability, integrity and transparency, gender transformation, human rights, and intersectionality. The Global Roadmap for Action outlines 5 priority areas, which includes progressive adolescent sexual, reproductive, and health rights and justice policies that highlights the role of young people in shaping the policies that most affect their lives, acknowledgement of the diverse youth identities and needs that is inclusive, diverse, and representative of youth in all their intersectional identities, meaningful youth partnerships that promotes equitable and meaningful youth partnerships, equitable adolescent youth sexual, reproductive, and health rights and justice financing, which ensures equitable, sustainable funding to youth-led initiatives and ideas, transparent data, monitoring and reporting, where comprehensive, disintegrated, transparent data on adolescents and youth is available for decision-making. The session will now be followed by a brief panel discussion, which will further elaborate on the priority areas of the Global Roadmap for Action. So can we please call on stage Justin Mello, a queer activist, one of the executive members of the University of Philippines, Babaylan, the longest existing student-led LGBTQIA organization in USA. May I have on stage Abel Fanil Tichani, a physician, human rights activist, and SRHR, Program Director of Women and Children Welfare and Development Organization in Ethiopia. May I now call on stage Alan Arandelia Nunes, a lawyer and human rights defender from Bolivia. Alan is the Executive Director of IYAFP, a global network of young human rights defenders. Alan was a member of the Family Planning 2030's Transition Overnight Group and currently a steering committee member of the IBP network. Next on the list of distinguished panelists is Keitra Thompson, a psychiatric and family advanced practice registered nurse, community-centered health services researcher, and advocate for reproductive justice and integrated models of care in the US and globally. She was a 2019 120 Under 40 finalist for her work to increase access to trauma-informed dignified reproductive health care and family planning services for women impacted by incarceration and substance use disorders. May I now call on stage Sadia Rahman, who will join our distinguished panel of panelists, a human rights activist working around mental health, SRHR, and climate change. She also plays the role of the youth focal point of Family Planning 2030, where she's responsible for echoing youth voices in the Family Planning 2030 recommendment process. Sadia was awarded the 120 Under 40 Award by Bill and Melinda Gates Institute for her contribution in global family planning. Hello? Hello? How's everyone doing? So I'm going to start with you, Justin. As you know that the sexual and reproductive health right needs of young people are largely overlooked, and with people with different sexual orientation and gender identities, the challenges are even more. Drawing from your own experiences, could you please tell us the personal challenges that you've had to overcome to access these essential services and information?
Okay, thank you so much. So as part of the LGBTQIA+ community, and also as on my experience working with other LGBTQIA+ youth, I could really say that there are a lot of challenges that these marginalized sectors face every day. I mean, despite of the efforts of the progressive groups, the culture, I can feel that the culture of the hate and violence continue to worsen. And I believe that the queer youth have it harder or worse. Why? Because imagine the discrimination they experience in their schools and homes. A lot of people just know gender as very binary, just men and women. In homes, like in a very traditional and conservative setup, it is really the parents who usually propagate the social barriers that discourage queer youth from accessing sexual and reproductive health services. For other countries, they are criminalizing homosexuality. So just imagine the struggle at a young age. They need to worry about hiding their sexuality and identity because of the fear that they could be the next victim of a homophobic, cis-sexist society that legitimizes systemic oppression. These gaps, the stigma, discrimination, and the parental rejection, I think these hinders their health-seeking behaviors because it invalidates their identities and sexualities. And it pushes the queer youth to undergo unsafe practices that really endanger their sexual health.
Thank you for the answer, Justin. I think another issue that I've encountered with LGBTQI organizations in my country is how they struggle with registration. I think that is something a lot of countries struggle with. So in the donor landscape, I think the funding to unregistered and local youth-led organizations is already very scarce. And these organizations who work in the LGBTQIA sector struggle with accessing funding. I'd like to ask Alan on this subject, and also as he leads an international NGO, to draw from his own experiences about the personal challenges he has had to overcome to access funding for his organization.
Thank you for the question. That's an eternal question that youth-led organizations are, asking and trying to answer. The challenges around funding and accessing funding for youth-led organizations are significant. Our community is trying to improve day by day, and we're working together with different partners, with other youth-led organizations to make that happen. Flexible funding remains a significant challenge for youth-led organizations. Most of initiatives received project-based funding only. That does not allow them to grow, to scale up their projects, and to strengthen their capacities as organizations. That situation becomes even worse when we are speaking about organizations that represent or work on those so-called sensitive issues, or that represent traditionally marginalized groups that are often criminalized. So the legal barriers that are imposed to youth-led organizations, together with practices in our community, in the funding landscape, and the lack of youth-friendly mechanisms for youth-led organizations to be able to thrive and implement the actions that we want to see happen are important to be addressed. This global roadmap for action is calling all governments, different stakeholders, the private sector, donors, INGOs, and youth-led organizations to work together to eliminate those barriers. If we want to make sure that we achieve our family planning, sexual and reproductive health and rights goals by 2030, we need to make sure that youth-led organizations have adequate funding to be able to co-implement all the actions that we are, committing to deliver by 2030.
I completely agree. Another issue with representation in the decision-making level, I think, with people with intersectional identities, I see there's already scarce seat for youths at the decision-making table, and for youths who have intersectional identities, I think the opportunities are even less. I would like to pass this question to Keitra and maybe provide with some insights.
That's a great question, Preeti. I think that we have to think about really being intentional in those decision-making spaces and how organizations and partners are inviting youth into the conversation and what youth they are targeting to invite into those conversations. Because I think oftentimes, although there's increasing interest and seats at the table for youth, are those youth actually feeling welcome and invited at that table and engaged at that table, or are they just there because we're trying to check a box? And I think that, when we're thinking about vulnerable communities of youth, that's even more important to consider. How are we really engaging with the diverse audiences and voices? And also, how are we building capacity for youth to be able to be at that table in a very meaningful way, not only for the organization's goals and objectives, but also for themselves as youth and their voices and the argument that they're, trying to make and the beliefs that they have. I think that, just another quick thing I'll say is that I think that oftentimes as we're having these conversations about how to engage youth more, there's great intention, but it's not always genuinely done in a very intentional way. And I think as organizations are trying to grapple with how do we really meaningfully engage youth at that decision-making table, I would urge and encourage all, especially bigger organizations, to take a step back and think about how they are engaging and incorporating those people within their organization that might be younger or newer or have diverse perspectives with even the decision-making and organizational policy-making that's going on within their organization. And that's a first step in and how they will go out and include more diverse audiences of youth in their work that are not within their organization.
Thank you, Keitra. I think, yeah, I agree with the concept of engaging and partnering with youths while we draft these policies and laws. So passing on the question to Abel, it is a given fact that adolescents and young people are not just beneficiaries of these sexual and reproductive health rights and justice policies, but they're also key drivers who play a crucial role in shaping these actions that improve their health and well-being. So in your opinion, why do you think it is important to have youths as the major stakeholders of these interventions and policies?
Thank you, Preeti. Around 50% or above the world population are below 35 years. So, and also we used to have different needs than adults. So participating youth in policy making, in program designing and implementation is mandatory, because if you have a plan to create a better future, sustainable development at community level, the youth should have to be involved in designing projects, making policy, or give recommendation, policy and law change is mandatory. So involving youth in every level of SRH program intervention is mandatory for me. And also, not only considering involving the youth, but also we should have to create a platform how to lead them to involve in that activity, like, most of our minority groups, like minority youth, like LGBTIQ, sex workers should have to be involved through intentionally built outreach mechanism, equal and inclusive approach to, especially basing on their human rights principle, will promote the SRH service provision for youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Abel. So when we talk about policy and decision making, we also know the importance of data and evidence in drafting those. Passing on my question to Sadia, do you think that research today is youth-driven? And if not, what are some areas or issues that you think needs more research?
Thank you so much for the question. Good morning, everyone. So I think data is something that is really important for all of the works we're doing in this field. And when we talk about advocacy, advocacy should be evidence-based advocacy. And but unfortunately, there are lack of adequate evidences around sexual and reproductive health and rights. And I would like to point that associated issues around this SRH field as well, like climate change, like mental health, and how these issues are affecting young people altogether. And if you ask me if we have adequate number of youth researchers, I would say no. So it's a high time that we promote young researchers, we create more opportunities for young researchers, because when we say about that adolescents and young people should have access to informed choices, that informed choices has to be backed up by data. And not only data, that those data should be presented in a youth-friendly way, so we young people can use those existing informative data, which is very useful in our work. So sometimes if it's don't get me wrong, I respect all the young researchers, you're doing a great job, but when it's a 1,000 or 2,000 page report, we young people might not have that energy or time when we are into the roads and kind of doing our activism. So when we have a youth-friendly material to display and we are quick to access that, that's more helpful for us. So yeah, I think it's high time we start talking about data and research and having young people into that field.
Yeah, I agree. A follow-up question to you. How has the lack of comprehensive and disaggregated data affected your work, and with regards to funding or implementation of programs?
So I can share that recently organizations like Light to Life and other organizations in Bangladesh started working around sexual and reproductive health rights justice and also climate justice. So we have seen that evidence around SRHR and climate change is not that much adequate, and especially how it's affecting young people. For example, how the barriers that young people face during disasters or maybe in humanitarian settings while they want to access quality services or information. So I think having youth researchers is important, also motivating existing senior researchers to research around or dig around that issue of climate change and SRH and how these things are connected, and also the issue of mental health. So it should be a holistic approach of finding out how all these areas are affecting young people altogether.
Thank you, Sadia. When you talk about mental health, I think it is still a very sensitive issue in a lot of countries. In many countries, we are seeing a backlash of SRHR policies and an increased anti-right discourse. My question to Keitra, what are the issues do you think are being most challenged by the anti-rights group? What do you think about that?
There's so many, and I think that we've kind of talked, and people have mentioned throughout this whole conference, obviously, and even during the first panel this morning and right now. So many, right? Anti-abortion, anti-choice, anti-immigration, anti-poverty, anti-trans, and there's so many anti-rights kind of issues on the table, and I think that, as young people, I think, advocacy and making our voices heard, right? And those places where maybe it's not wanted, right? We have to figure out ways to do that. But I also think that we need to collectively, as a group, one way we can fight back against those anti-right, rhetoric that's happening is to really adopt a justice framework, whether it be climate and environmental justice, right, reproductive justice versus just what reproductive rights is. Because I think that if we adopt a justice framework in how we're thinking about things, then it allows us to really understand that the intersectionality that happens in all of our identities and also the interconnectivity. Because the truth of the matter is, when we're thinking about just kind of a rights obstruction, right, not everyone is going to be impacted by that equally when their rights are obstructed. And we have to take that into consideration. Not that it's not important, right, but we have to go a step further. And I think that we need to do more education and advocacy around this justice piece and having a more equal understanding of, systemic and systematic oppressions that really do, I think, drive these anti-right frameworks.
Thank you, Keitra. So when you talk about intersectional identities, coming back to you, Justin, based on your observation, how successful do you think are policies, programs, and interventions reaching out to these traditionally marginalized groups? And what progress do you think is being made so far, and what are the key gaps?
Yeah, so I think the success is that there's a lot of organizations really are marching along with the LGBTQIA plus community to forward LGBTQIA plus rights. And, so a lot of sexual and reproductive health services, they are patterning it to inclusivity, but we cannot deny the fact that there are still some sexual and reproductive health services that are not that gender affirming. And this is, and I think this is where the hesitancy of queer youth to access sexual and reproductive health services also stems. There are still transgender and non-conforming people who experience dead naming, misgendering. They were not being addressed by their preferred pronouns, and this is very harmful for them. And not that the service is doing this deliberately, but because they are, I believe, they are unaware and they lack knowledge about the sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and sex characteristics framework. And yeah, this gap makes us think us LGBTQIA plus youth tolerated more than accepted. Also, I think that one of the key gaps in the policies and programs is that sexual and reproductive health professional services are mostly generalized. The problem with generalized healthcare is that they are not equipped to understand what it means to be a queer individual, and as well as understand the unique experiences of these marginalized group. It cannot assure that these gender and sexual minorities will gain safe spaces from the services and from the clinics. It cannot assure that the specific needs of the LGBTQI youth are being addressed well. I think the discrimination is already ingrained in all social institutions of our society, especially in healthcare. So the question really is that how can we trust them that they will fully understand us, the LGBTQIA plus youth, in a context where we should be extra vulnerable, given that historically, health professionals once viewed queerness as a disorder and tried or attempted to treat homosexuality.
I think I can completely relate with what you just said.
Can I just, sorry, can I just add something? Like, it's actually, a lot of people actually tend to misinterpret or misunderstand these demand. But we need to understand that we are asking these demand not for not because we are asking for the whole sexual and reproductive health rights services to be centered only on our community, but for the services to acknowledge the different issues that exist in our community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I think I can completely agree as a physician myself. There is so much to be done on the healthcare sphere, especially to make gender-affirming care accessible. So talking about including these people with intersexual identities in policy and decision making, how do you think we can push this conversation forward, Keitra?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that we have to, be open and seek out. I think if we really want to push this conversation forward, and for youth and other voices, I think we have to also be very careful sometimes in how we, just kind of say youth, and maybe we want to make sure that we're being diverse in how we're thinking about youth, right? Is the different age categories within that category, and also the different lives and voices that come to the table. I think it's not a one monolithic kind of experience or way that it looks. I mean, we need to think locally in the U.S. context, but globally, and even in a place like the U.S., right? There's so much difference across, right, and geographic. So I think that in terms of engagement, we need to be very intentional about civic engagement and increasing the agency and capacity for people. I think that we've made a lot of progress, and in some spaces and places, youth have a very strong voice, and in some of them feel very comfortable being advocates. But again, we have, I can talk to a teen girl who is, preparing to go and lobby on Capitol Hill in the U.S., and another one who's trying to figure out how to even have enough agency within her home at the kitchen table to have a conversation about, I want to go to college, right? So we have to really think carefully about how we engage diverse audiences in the decision-making process comprehensively.
Thank you, Keitra. When we talk about engagement, I think a term that is often confused with youth-adult partnerships is meaningful youth engagement. While they go together, I think they're not the same thing. Alan, could you please shed more light on that?
Sure. Well, meaningful adolescent and youth engagement is a broad concept that we use that encompasses, a full range of activities, ways in which young people are engaged in the design, implementation, evaluation of programs, policies, interventions, and so on. So it's a broad term. And I think that one of the highest ways, or one of the best ways in which young people are engaged is through equitable partnerships. When where young people, youth-led organizations, initiatives work together, hand in hand, co-design, co-create, implement together different initiatives, programs, interventions, projects, and so on. So that's the main difference. And I think that in the past few years, our community has done a tremendous project when it comes to meaningful adolescent and youth engagement, but we as youth-led organizations are pushing to ensure that we achieve equitable partnerships in all types of engagements, in all areas that we're working. Initiatives like We Trust Youth have been challenging our community to walk the talk and to see, okay, how can we work together? How can we do meaningful adolescent and youth engagement better? And how can we learn from each other in this process, in this continuous process of trying to do meaningful youth engagement better? So that's one of the main differences between meaningful youth engagement only and equitable partnerships with youth.
Thank you, Alan. To Abel, what do you think are some of the ways young people can participate meaningfully and equitably with governance and INGOs and civil society organizations? Sorry, repeat the question? Okay. So what are some ways you think young people can engage meaningfully and equitably with government and INGOs and civil society organizations?
The main problem with for youth participation in NGOs, in funding institutes, in policy and lawmaking institute is, the adults doesn't have, that much trust on youth, and youth at the same time they don't have trust on adults. So we should have to create a solution for such a problem. One of the solutions will be, selecting eager adults and youth to such program and build their capacity to create the environment which led the youth to actively involve in NGOs and different sectors. The other one will be establishing clear set of role and responsibility between adults and youth. So both of them will engage on their activity with full aware of their responsibility. So that will at the end lead to us better collaboration. The third one, it will be creating inclusive approach, especially basing on human rights principle. We'll create a platform for most marginalized youth, like as I said previously. There are peoples, minority, under minority. There are youths who are marginalized from every sector of service. Like even in some countries, some youths they don't have the right to live because of their sexual or gender identity or ethnic based, whatever it is. But they usually exclude from everything. So we should have to create an environment which is inclusive and human rights based approach in every project designing and every funding principle. And also funders should have to understand that mainstreaming the fund for Global South especially is important because, there are great initiatives at grassroots level, but it's less than 1%, around less than 1%, the global donation stream to the grassroots level initiative in Global South. So promoting and raising such support will strengthen the youth engagement in NGOs activity in different sectors to promote the right and equality in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So when we talk about financing, passing my question to Alan, what do you think are some of the creative ways where grassroots level organizations can fundraise? And also, if you could point out some of the needs to achieve sustainable financing for adolescent youth sexual and reproductive health rights and justice?
That's a very complicated question, but from the perspective of youth-led organizations, I think that something that we can do more intentionally is work together. We keep trying to work with big INGOs, with renowned NGOs, but we need to be more intentional and partner together, we as youth-led organizations and demonstrate the world that youth-led action matters. That's kind of one important thing that we need to do. And I think that, of course, we all that work in adolescent and youth, sexual and reproductive health, rights and justice know that there is immense funding needs and gaps to achieve our goals that we have together. There are issues that are underfunded or that receive no funding whatsoever. Despite different efforts to track where money is going from donors and from different international aid agencies. So we need to make sure as young people, as the community that are here together, that we push for comprehensive sexual and reproductive health services that allow young people to, to have their needs in all their identities addressed. So I think that's something very important that we need to make sure that we take into account. So financing for adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health needs to be adequate, needs to be predictable, needs to be sustainable, and there needs to be a strong focus on domestic resource mobilization, because it's important for governments to ensure that sexual and reproductive health and rights that are essential human rights are guaranteed in their own countries.
Thank you, Alan. So I think even when it comes to funding, it is essential for data to reflect a lot of evidence, right? But I think one of the major issues that we encounter is with the youth-friendliness and accessibility of data. In your opinion, Sadia, what do you think? How can researchers communicate their findings in a way that can be more easily accessible and digestible for young people to apply them in their work?
I think the most important part of data and research is that we need to share the data and the research we have done. So I come from Bangladesh, and we have a law to share data, and as well as we have an act proposed in this 2020 that's called Data Protection Act. And under that act, our government can access any of our data remotely or physically. So that's also violates human rights and one of the fundamental rights, that's privacy. So we don't want that, but we want the important research that are led by government or other important or bigger organizations that to be shared with us. And also, we have an adolescent health, national adolescent health strategy in Bangladesh, and that says to build a robust data collection system for adolescents and young people on the behavior of their practices into sexual and reproductive rights. But in Bangladesh, the problem is we only offer family planning to eligible married young couples. So also, we have a higher rate of adolescents unmet FP needs, and we have a higher rate of child marriages as well. So I really don't know how we are addressing this robust data collection system without having unmarried young people on that list. And we don't provide services to unmarried young people yet, so that's a question as well. And I think one of the other challenges is that having young people on board is always fine, but having young researchers on board, I think it's not been promoted yet, and also young people are not invited into data dissemination or any other programs so frequently. So I'd request everyone that if you're having an amazing research, please have a research assistant who is young, who is passionate, and also invite young people when you are sharing your findings. And also, while I was working around mental health and climate change in Bangladesh, there is no data around mental health. So nobody is comfortable sharing their state of mental health, and we don't have any adequate data of Bangladesh. I don't know if any other countries have that data. So I think this is the stigma, and situation we need to work on, that people needs to speak about their mental health as well. And also I think not only in Bangladesh, in most of the countries, there is only two states of mental health. Either you are sane or you are insane. So we need to break that stigma as well, that no health is without mental health, and how climate change is actually affecting our mental health and access to quality sexual and reproductive health and rights services as well. And I think, yeah, if that addresses your question.
I think it adequately does, Sadia. So, as we're about to wrap up this session, I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists for their time and valuable insights into the pressing themes of the Global Roadmap of Action, which you will find in the QR code, which will appear in the slides we'll be playing later on. So, with this, we urge the youth-led organizations and young people to join our movement and extend your support by the advocacy, implementation, and evaluation of the Global Roadmap of Action. The Global Roadmap of Action presents youth-led initiatives with the unique opportunity to utilize it as a tool in the campaigns. Ultimately, I think it is within our capacities and responsibilities as young people to hold our government accountable for the commitments made towards sustainable development goals. To the government, policymakers, NGOs, and international community, we want you to extend your support by encouraging youth participation at the decision-making table and making our priorities a reality. We want you to invest in our ideas and initiative while we partner equitably and meaningfully with you. The time to act is now for government, donors, the private sector, NGOs, youth-led organizations, and every young people in this room to come together and commit to a shared vision of materializing a world in which adolescent youth sexual reproductive health rights and justice is realized and responsive of the diverse needs and intersectional identities of young people. Together, we can create a world where all young people have access to comprehensive sexual and reproductive health care and knowledge and are able to exercise their rights fully. A world in which all young people have a seat at the decision-making table and have the agency to shape their policies and decisions around their HR needs that affect their lives the most. A world in which equitable, mutually respectful, and beneficial youth partnerships are the norm. A world in which comprehensive, disaggregated data on adolescents and youth is available for decision-making. A world in which young people and the initiatives receive equitable funding for the innovative ideas. And a just, equitable, and sustainable adolescent youth sexual and reproductive health rights space in which all young people in all their intersectional gender identities and sexual orientation can thrive and enjoy their sexual and reproductive health rights with dignity and respect. It is time we let them know what we want, what we need, and what we expect through this global roadmap of action. It is time we let them know. With this, I'd like to call on stage the youth leaders from all the 42 thought leaders who were behind the creation of the global roadmap of action. Can we have them on stage, please, with a round of applause?
Let them know. 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 Let them know.
Youth, let us know. We have heard. Now it's on all of us to take action together.
Once again, can we hear it up for all the thought leaders on the stage, please? And all the youth leaders, can you please stand up on Or like you can show your support from your own way, from your seat, delegates.
And how power shifting can help us with regards to human
Thank you once again for your contribution and for working tirelessly and relentlessly on this global roadmap of action. Thank you once again for being a very patient crowd. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today, we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programs. And today we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP 2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today, we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programs. And today we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP 2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today, we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programs. And today we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP 2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon. Hello everyone, welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programming. And today we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Ooh, okay. So thank you for joining us today on this fantastic panel that is titled "Power of the Community" and investments, voices, and collective action to advance family planning. And we're here to discuss how to amplify the power and benefit everyone in this room and beyond. And thanks for joining us today here in person and colleagues and friends watching us live. We have a great panel today, and this is so amazing that this morning I was so excited and nervous, like I'm having a very high-profile panel with Supriya Madhavan, who is the Senior Health Specialist at the Global Financing Facility sitting next to me. And then we have Dr. Samu Dube, who is the Executive Director at P 2030. We also have the Honorable Dr. Thea Medard Antara, the Honorable Member of Parliament from the Republic of Tanzania. And then next to her is Nabiha Kaji Hutchins, who is the President and CEO of PI. And the last one, but not least, Amos Mawale, the Executive Director and founder of the Center for Reproductive Health and Rights. Thanks for joining, all of you. And also, it is really something, I was curious when I saw the title of the panel and I have to moderate. I was thinking like, yeah, maybe I'm also part of the community who would be watching you. And it's great to be with, sharing the stage with you in that case. So I would really like to go to Dr. Supriya first. Tell us briefly, and also like in order, all the panelists. And tell us briefly about the organization you are working with, each of you, and how you are working to advance access to family planning and sexual reproductive health and rights services. All of the panelists, I would start with Dr. Supriya and then go to Dr. Dubey. Dr. Supriya.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, thank you. So the Global Financing Facility for every women, adolescents, and children really believes in closing the financing gap to allow countries, the 50 highest burden countries in the world, to achieve up to their sustainable development goals by 2030. So how do we do this? We have our core model is a country-led, country-owned, inclusive approach to ensure that there are collective actions to ensure equitable access to high-quality services to improve health outcomes for women, adolescents, and children. We support countries. We work through countries. We support countries. We have a large multi-stakeholder partnership globally that includes bilaterals, multilaterals, UN agencies, CSOs, private sector, and so we really the entry point is reproductive, maternal, newborn, child health, and adolescent health and nutrition. But it's in support of helping countries to achieve UHC. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Dr. Dubey, yes.
Thank you so much for that question. And so FP 2030, which was conceived in 2012 as FP 2020, is the only global partnership that focuses solely on family planning. And we've got this razor-sharp focus on family planning because we believe that the lift that we need to advance not only gender equality, but also economic progress in many countries and attainment of many sustainable development goals will do better if we include family planning in our programs. So what we do is that we provide a platform for our partners, governments, civil society organizations, private sector, and multilateral organizations, donors, and researchers, and even the broader humanitarian and development community to collaborate and share knowledge around family planning and how we can advance this economic progress. So we galvanize commitments from countries to make and operationalize them with an accountability framework to make sure we make progress to family planning in terms of access to rights-based family planning. So we play a unique role. We are not here to duplicate efforts of many organizations who are doing this work on family planning, but we make sure we galvanize the necessary conversations at community, at local, at country, and at global level, where we foster the exchange of technical expertise, providing a convening space for all partners to coalesce around the best practices in family planning. That's what we do. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Honorable Dr. Antara.
Thank you so much. I'm a member of parliament working with Tanzania Parliament Association on population and development. So as a member, we really work so positively to access to family planning by engaging the government and stakeholders in various areas, strengthening the family planning program. Despite the effort, of course, in Tanzania, like many other countries, we are faced with child pregnancies, sex abuse for children, child labor, And also, we have a problem of FGM. Still, in our country, for example, comprehensive sexual education is never explained or is never taught. So we go forward looking at this family planning. We have to strengthen, or we have to make sure that all this type of sexual abuse, type of sodomization, type of child labor, at least is said in the parliament. And again, we have a problem of male member of parliament normally don't talk much about this family planning issue. But us as a female member of parliament, we really talk much about family planning and see that at least all these other problems which are happening to our children, especially the girls' children, and today the boys' children, at least is diminishing. Thank you.
Hey. Member of parliaments are the great representatives of the community. You need to talk, and you will talk today. And there are people from Tanzania are also present in here and online. We have Nabiha from PA, please.
I hope this is working. Yes, excellent. Thank you so much and for this space. I work with PAI, and we are a civil society organization that was founded over 55 years ago, 57 years ago, to be exact, with a focus to advance access and prioritize family planning as critical to advance progress for people around the world. And so we were founded with the intention and the focus and the mission to ensure that good policies, expansive investments, and the right attention was being paid to family planning. We were founded to hold our US government accountable and advocate to them to ensure that these steps were taken, and also advocate on the global stage with engagement to multilateral and bilateral institutions. We also recognize that we're part of a broader movement, given our mission of universal access to sexual and reproductive health and rights. And through that lens, we recognize that there is a critical role for civil society as an ecosystem, civil society coming together in coalition and working together to also advance the movement. And so as part of that, we provide flexible funding to 120 community-based civil society organizations across more than 35 countries, so they can hold their own decision makers, their own policy makers accountable, and advance sexual and reproductive health and rights for all, which of course includes family planning.
Thank you so much for advancing the power of community, the speeches that need to reach the power holders and the policymakers. Nabiha, thank you so much. And last but not least, Amos.
Thank you so much, Shaikat, and good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot. I think for us, Center for Reproductive Health and Education is an organization based in Zambia. We are highly focused on sexual and reproductive health. We do not provide services. However, we are very key in the area of advocacy. As you have noticed, even from the panel, I think reproductive health is key, and CRHE in this case is actually the link between the community, the donors, the members of parliament, the government, and other partners. We bring the voice of the community to the table. We also ensure that we advocate for policies that are very inclusive. We advocate for domestic financing for health. We also want to ensure that sexual and reproductive health is at every development stage, especially where policies are concerned and also where development is concerned. Thank you.
Can we have a round of applause? What a great panel full of policymakers, civil society voices, leaders, civil society leaders across the world, commitment trackers like PLEN 2030, and also a lot at great influencers. So Samu, I know that you just joined PLEN 2030 as the Executive Director. Congratulations on that once again. And And your organization, FP 2030, has been able to catalyze over 50 commitments from the government, civil society, and private sector partners to advance access and to an investment in family planning. Many who are in the room already, including myself, what needs to happen to ensure these commitments are acted upon?
Thank you so much for that question. I think when we are here, we hear about commitments at a global stage, right? It's somewhat easy to say, yes, it's the right thing to do, we will do it. But where the rubber hits the road is in operationalization of that commitment. So what FP 2030 does is that, number one, I think what we have managed to do is to sort of shift power from a centralized secretariat that was based in Washington, D.C., to a more devolved structure that is in regional hubs, so that these hubs will work with countries to galvanize these commitments. And to date, as we are sitting here, we've got about 41 commitments in total. Some are still in the finalization stage from countries, and nearly 90 from non-governmental actors coming together since last year, coming together to say we're going to do something about family planning. I think even the discipline of saying I'm going to commit itself is something that we have tried to instill in countries through a focal point structure that has got civil society, youth, government, donors, all in one place in terms of getting a commitment done. Once a commitment is done, operationalization of that commitment is through an implementation program that the government and these focal points actually sort of enact and operationalize at a country level, and we follow that up with an accountability framework. So as FP 2030, to make sure that these commitments come to life, we help countries with that technical assistance that we broker through our partners. We also help them, the advocates, to draft smart advocacy goals to meaningfully improve access to contraceptive information products and services. We've got an accountability framework that countries have adopted, and we follow this through so that we are accountable to ourselves. You know, we've got a member of parliament here. That accountability, even to our citizens, is key. So we use that to sort of track progress for commitments. Then we use data to make sure that there is cadence and transparency. Where are we in terms of achieving these commitments? And the newly formed regional hubs are going to help us broaden the understanding of where countries are at, so that collectively we can stay true to 5 years from Pattaya, where are we in terms of the progress that we really want to make? As a universe, as a collective, we promote mutual accountability approach for government commitments, where we are responsible as a collective for ensuring that the story of women and girls in accessing contraception is at least heard at a global level. So we remain globally connected to make sure that happens. You will see as you go across where commitment makers are in either operationalizing their commitment, where they are struggling, they highlight their struggles, and together with our partners, whether it's GFF, PAI, members of parliament, we make sure we sort of catalyze, inject an enzyme so that commitment comes to life. That's what we do. And to date, we've been successful in doing that, even though we do have a few challenges. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Dubey. Basically, I was really looking at some of the commitments that Bangladesh government made, and we were working and actually advocating on those. You know, the commitments to FP 2020 formally and now FP 2030 are so powerful an element of advocacy, and also something that we really work on back in the field. So this is really very important, and I'm really looking forward to all the implementations in the next 5 years. I'll talk to you. Dr. Anthara, building from what Dr. Dubey has shared, and I would like to look at the considerations at the country level now. Honorable, Tanzania has been a commitment maker under both FP 2020 and now FP 2030. And the Tanzanian government has recognized that improving access to family planning is a priority. I have 2 questions for you. Number one, the first is, what has progressed in Tanzania looked look like, and what is noteworthy for us to know about? The second question is building on what my previous question. Can you talk about the partnership between the government and civil society to advance the family planning policy agenda? What has worked and what needs to be strengthened? I can repeat the second question. You can go for the first one now.
Okay, thank you very much. And indeed, there is progress. For example, today we have Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan. Previously, family planning was very quiet. People dealt with only looking at using condom maybe to prevent STDs. But now, with the new president who is a female, in fact, she knows that if we don't look into the number of population, which is increasing, we are going to be in danger. So today we are about 61 million. So we were 40 million 2012. Now today we are 61 million. Now you can see this tremendous increased number of people. So coming in with Samia and what she says, because when a president says something, it becomes a law or a rule. So we are very happy now President Samia has said that no. We have to look into the family planning. So family planning measures should take place so that at least we should go on, slowly and telling the families, no, we don't need 9 children, we don't need 10 children. It is too much. So giving this idea or telling this to the nation, at least it has opened up our mind that no, we need to go with the family planning strategies. And again, not only to this one, for example, with safe abortion, at least today, the young parliamentary, the young ones who are in the parliament are talking about safe abortion. It was not easy for them to say because they were worried, should we talk about safe abortion in the parliament? But there's a progress now. The young ones have started talking about safe abortion is important for the young ones. So this is also a progress in Tanzania. And I am sure just by starting talking, start telling the people in the house, people will get ideas, and maybe the government will do something to make it official that safe abortion is important. As so many girls, and especially the young girls, maybe they are dying, they are getting diseases because they do abortion without taking the precaution. So these are the progress at least we are doing right now as Tanzanians. Thank you.
Great. Do you want the second question?
Second.
Okay, let me repeat. So can you talk more about the partnership between the government and civil society to advance this agenda that you were talking? And I'm so thankful to you because of you are such a great advocate for access to family planning and abortion care. Thank you so much. Second question, please.
Okay. For the other second questions, of course we have the local private sectors and the youth have managed to start looking into this. The local private sectors are helping to see that the family planning program is being done. We found that sometimes for these local private sectors, they also depend on foreign or donors so that they can help us. But we have said that no, it is not, it's now important for us at least to depend on our own, seeing that these local private sectors, they also take charge in helping the family planning programs.
Wonderful. Friends from Tanzania who are in the room, follow up with Dr. Entara after this panel. Thank you so much, Dr. Entara. And now I go to Amos. Let's go back to country level as well once again. Zambia had an important win, Amos, and it has also served as an inspiration, an example to other countries. Family planning is on the government's national health insurance scheme. This is amazing. And civil society advocates like you, had an important role in achieving this win. What is next on the family planning agenda and what is needed to achieve it? Be serious, Amos.
Thanks, Shekhar. First, let me, number one, comment that there is always power in working together, and the win did not come easily. I must mention that colleagues in the room, we really appreciated their support. We had a very strong team from Zambia that made sure that the family planning methods are inclusive in the insurance package that was developed. Secondly, I think we also had colleagues from the Ministry of Health who believes that it's key that family planning should be part of that agenda, and they believe in family planning, and hence they made sure that the agenda is part of the package that was developed. I must mention that in terms of progress, I think Zambia is doing well. We have seen that now family planning is part of the national development agenda. We just launched our 8th National Development Plan, and family planning is one of the pillars that has been highlighted. That itself shows that there is political will, and the government is doing that. And I must mention also here that our commitments have been finalized. You'll see them soon. They'll be launched. I mean, the government will be able to do that. Thirdly, we are concluding our national health strategy. Family planning has been also anchored in that as a key pillar for national development. And last but not least, I must mention that the allocation of resource in the 2023 budget are high towards family planning to ensure that the procurement of those commodities are actually there. So now, Shaikat, you're asking in terms of what is next on the agenda. With all what I have mentioned, I think we need to see to it that we realized the release of resources, okay? Because these have now been written, which was a key achievement. Now we need to see to it that the government actually is releasing those funds. They are going to the district. There's procurement of these commodities, and that the last mile community is accessing the product. It's not useful for us to have the documents well written when in actual fact young people continue getting pregnant, they are not able to access the service. When women continue having not much of a choice, we believe in choice, and that is key. So we want to ensure that women have access to the method that they want when they go to seek the service. What is challenging is that when you go to the last mile, women do not have the method that they are looking for. So we actually just give them what is available. But what we are trying to do is to ensure that there is a choice that women can get, and they're able to use that choice which they are looking for. If that is done, then we'll be able to say that we have achieved our goal where women have this choice of a method that they are looking for. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amos. So many things that to follow up. I feel like advocates like you will be following up all the actions. If those budgets are spent well, are the women's getting the services at their doorstep, and also if those actions by the policymakers are really being followed up or not. So a great monitoring example, I hope that you will set from Zambia. We all look forward to. Thank you so much. I go to Nabiha, who is the president and CEO of PI. Nabiha, so much of PI's work involves supporting and expanding the civic space for SRHR advocacy. I think you just say that PI's network of partners is 120 local CSOs across 36 countries, my God, including in Bangladesh. I'm from there. So please share a bit about the power of this ecosystem of civil society partners that we mentioned earlier. What are the needs and opportunities, and what can be done to sustain and further develop these networks? Over to you, Nabiha.
Thank you, Shekhar. And yes, your organization, Serak Bangladesh, has been a very valued partner of PAI for a very long time. And I also should have said at the beginning, congratulations, because you received the Trailblazer Award. One of those who received the Trailblazer Award at ICFP for your catalytic efforts and change maker that you are, not only for Bangladesh and South Asia, but around the world. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
I think Amos said it really beautifully and perfectly about the power of this ecosystem, and the fact that, Amos, you said that progress is not achieved alone. And that I think is a clear demonstration of the power of this ecosystem of advocates. The ecosystem, not only the ecosystem that PAI currently has and wants to foster, and we feel it's so important because if we are on this shared mission, we need many. Right? We need many voices, we need many perspectives, we need many sectors, we need new and interesting ways to fund this movement, but we also need to be guided by core values, and certainly our values that we are guided by in our commitment and our engagement with partners who we see as peers, and we see ourselves in that ecosystem approaching it as peers where we're sharing our strengths, we're sharing learnings, we're sharing power, and we also recognize that we are stronger together. I think the other part that is so critical for the ecosystem of advocates is the impact of the collective coming together, looking at what are the priorities on the advocacy side to advance family planning and sexual and reproductive health and rights? Are there cross-cutting priorities that we as a regional community, as a global community, can come together on and coordinate our advocacy, make sure we've got the right evidence that we're bringing forward to government officials who want to do the right things for their people, that we are having shared voice and conversations with the important donors and those who are setting up the agenda at the global level. Because again, we are stronger together. The other piece that I find so inspiring and so urgent about the ecosystem of advocates is the role that advocates and this ecosystem plays in holding decision makers, governments accountable to make sure that services and support is provided, that health systems are functioning, that the financing that has been committed to actually is released and is accessed. And at the same time, and you know, that's the supply side of this equation, right? But if people and communities don't know their rights, if people and communities don't actually access those services and that support, we will not see the impact that we hope to see in our advocacy of universal access to family planning and SRHR. So that has to be part of it. How is civil society looking at both sides of this equation and ensuring that as we talk about access, we're also talking about not just the commodities and the financing, we're also talking about tackling the human element, which is oftentimes the bigger barrier in access. And that is a role for civil society, and an important one. In terms of needs and opportunities, there is an important conversation underway around localization. And I do think it's so important, and certainly PAI, most of our partnerships are with local organizations. But at the same time, localization does not necessarily mean that the other systems, the other histories, the other players in this should not still be connected. So I think the needs are certainly invest in organizations directly as much as you can, not only in their advocacy, but also in their institutions, so they can build strong institutions and sustain their work, but also invest in this ecosystem of partners who are coming together. And we have at PAI great fortune to have worked with various networks and systems around accountability. One being leadership through Samasha, one of our longstanding partners around Motion Tracker that is looking at government accountability and are they actually doing the kinds of things they would do to support the commitments around FP 2020 then and now FP 2030. We also recently have engaged with support from the World Bank and Global Financing Facility, what is known as the NGO host. And this is really recognizing that civil society has a very important role to play to come together and engage with governments to set those national priorities and those national investment requests for funding from the GFF to advance those health priorities. And that came about with catalytic funding to try out what is the role of civil society and the voice to hold governments accountable and come together as community. So a lot of very exciting work, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about it, but those are some of the needs and opportunities I see.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I just take one key point from your speech, which is success and progress is not achieved alone. We all are part of it. We all share this responsibility of achieving the success and win. And thank you so much, Nabia, for leading this, the atmosphere and the civic space for SRH advocacy in all the 36 countries. My God, this is too many. Okay, now I go to Dr. Supriya Madhavan. Supriya is from the Global Financing Facility of the World Bank. And Supriya, Nabiha just mentioned that this investment in civil society engagement in support of maternal, newborn, child and adolescent sexual and reproductive health and nutrition, and that the Global Financing Facility has made. A lot of things you are making. I understand that this is the second time in the history of the GFF that the GFF has made such an investment in civil society. Could you talk about what inspired the need for the GFF to make this investment, and what does the GFF hope to see achieved as a result of this investment in CSOs, including youth-led organizations?
Thank you, Sheikhat. And again, on behalf of the GFF, congrats to you on your Trailblazer Award. So that's a great question. First of all, we're really happy to be on this stage with PAI, and yeah, it's a really important part of our work and really core to our mandate. And now we realize we cannot achieve our mandate of improving outcomes for women, adolescents, and children without the support of CSOs. And hence, we've made this second catalytic piece of support to PAI. So, I mean, again, going back to what I said, our model, at the core of our model is that it's a country-led, country-owned model and process. And we really stress that should be inclusive, and that it should be a multi-stakeholder process of prioritizing and really listening to different voices. So what, as you said, what do we hope to achieve through CSOs? Well, one, it is, as I think Nabiha said, it's a matter of bringing voices that are typically not at the table, sitting with policymakers, sitting with ministries of finance, ministries of health, sitting with the donors. But we also feel that those voices of youth-led organizations, of women's groups, should be also at the table. So we see inclusivity as a key function of CSOs. The second is accountability, of course, holding the government accountable for what they have committed to do, but holding us all accountable. Again, it's a multi-stakeholder process. We have commitments. We have commitments on a number of things with respect to prioritization, budgeting, service delivery, and just delivering for women and children. And I think CSOs are uniquely placed to in that accountability space. So there's, I think one of the pieces of our model is that we support countries to undertake a prioritization process and thereby develop a prioritized, costed investment case. And we want to see CSOs there in that prioritization process to make sure that the needs of, again, overlooked populations, marginalized populations, youth and adolescents, is included in those priorities. I think Amos gave a really nice example of budget monitoring and advocacy for domestic resource mobilization. So for example, in most of our countries right now, it's pretty opaque to figure out how much of a country's budget is going into adolescent health. We all say we're committed to putting more money into adolescent health, but we really need to track that. And so I think CSOs play a really key role in getting partners, just bilateral and even partners like the World Bank and the GFF to say how much we're putting into adolescent health specifically, to getting government systems, national health accounts, IFMSs, to really, show how much is being set aside for adolescents. So really key piece. Service delivery. So one, we have fragile contexts, conflict contexts where the warring parties really only trust CSOs to come in and deliver services to the population. So that's key. In DRC, for example, I was just at a roundtable with Dr. Dubé yesterday, saying that in DRC, we've actually the GFF has really pressed on the government to contract with CSOs to provide family planning services in the community to expand choice to adolescent girls especially. And finally, I think there's a huge SPC demand generation role. So one example is Mali. Mali has a large primary healthcare project financed by the World Bank, the Dutch government, and the GFF. And so that's the supply side, strengthening service for women, adolescents, and children. But on the demand side, we've also supported a CSO in Kulikoro to go out and talk to communities about why it's important to allow adolescents to access family planning and SRHR services, why it's important to allow women to go out and access family planning services without their husband's, consent or accompaniment. So, we really see CSOs as core to helping us and helping our governments deliver on their commitments.
Thank you so much, Supriya. And of course, I take note that inclusivity is committed and it is being seen to be done. Amos, going back to you. You are one of the lead CSO representatives in the advisory body of the Global Financing Facility. That's wow. Okay, which is known as the Investors Group. I want to ask you two questions. What are some of the needs and opportunities you are emphasizing as you sit in these important donor circles and bring forward the perspective of civil society as one of the members of the community? And the second one is, and I would also like to build on the other question, which is, what do we as civil society advocates need to do better or more of to support the case making that you and others are doing, so we can see increased support, funding and attention for advocacy and civil society? Long questions. If you forget, I can repeat.
Wow, that's the second one is a tough one. But anyway, let's see how it goes. So I think you've heard clearly from Doc there that the civil society practically is sitting on the table. The investors group is a group of funders that we have seen that are contributing towards the GFF. Our role practically is we are there to ensure that we highlight what the civil society are doing at country level. Secondly, we also want to make sure that we validate what the implementing countries are doing. The countries that are implementing report to this particular group, and it's important that they have some validation in terms of civil society participation. At the same time, we are there to ensure that countries also are aware, and we encourage them that civil society should be part of the investment case development. And there should be a wider consultative to ensure that the investment cases that are being developed are widely consultative. Secondly, they are people's needs driven. And thirdly, they are country accepted. If that is done, that's what our role is. And then in terms of what we take back, so we do that, and then we take back to our communities what is being agreed. So for instance, we also validate the design of what the countries are doing. We give feedback to the countries and also to the civil society community. And then last but not least, we also try to promote transparency. Now, you asked me what as civil society we should do more to ensure that we seek more funding and support. I think one of the things that has been so difficult, I think, is to ask donors to be accountable. I think at country level, it's been so difficult from the feedback that we are receiving that donors do not share the reports in terms of how their funding is actually distributed. I think it's critical that that should be done. Once that is done, I think it helps to ensure to know the actual amount of resource that is going towards health and is not fragmented. Currently, there are discussions of ensuring that there is one plan across. I hope that will be able to be done. And then also in the name of promoting transparency, I think it will be helpful if donors did that, and it will help everyone else know the actual resource that is going out there. And then in terms of seeking more support, I think we need to also ensure that we are very honest with the donors. We know that we are not putting resource on the table, but we need to be very sincere and honest with them that this is the need of the community, this is the need of the civil society, and this is the need of the country. If those discussions are brought and are discussed honestly, I think we'll be able to see to it that there is promotion of transparency. There is the ongoing discussions around power shifting. I think power shifting will only occur if there is a lot of conversation going around and a lot of honest being discussed. And then also the willingness to ensure that that power is transformed and given to the community that deserves. There is always a say that people who want change need to ensure that they push for that change themselves. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amos. And it is really important to see that if I'm making commitment or I'm accountable for that or not. And of course, transparency in terms of making the commitments and also who are following up. Dr. Samo, I know that FP 2030 has the commitment of its own and a mandate to follow up on the commitments. So we know that sustained financing from the discussion, we know sustained financing for family planning is a challenge. But I know that there is lots of commitments on financing it, and there's a big unmet need also in place. To achieve many of the bold commitments to advance family planning progress, we need to increase resources from diverse sources. What do you see the untapped funding opportunity, and how do we do better leverage what we do have to expand the funding pool and sustain it? It's a lot of things.
Yes, it is a lot of things because we're talking about money, isn't it? So thank you for that question. And you know, we talk about sustained financing. At times we don't know what that means because what's the horizon that you're looking at when you're talking about sustained financing? I want to start answering that question by thanking those individuals who wake up from various donor organizations or even from treasuries of governments to say we will ensure there is financing for family planning. I think there are many way back in 2012, then FCD or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you know, USAID making commitments to say we will make this work. So I think we want to thank them for that. The second thing is that, you know, when we're talking about sustained financing, first, we have graduated from the funding to financing these, these endeavors. The most sustainable way to finance a program is through the government. And we have seen that, we say poverty is expensive. Poverty of a country is very expensive because it doesn't ladder up to that progress that we want. So the source of financing that we really need is from the country, because there is this bi-directional equation between investing in family planning and what you get is development. That's what we want. We want inclusive development that is not devoid of rights. Rights-based inclusive development as an outcome for us investing in family planning. For us to get there in that bi-directional equation, we know there are many steps that we are going to get to, right? First, we know that family planning is going to help us in the health indicators. We're working on them in countries through GFF, universal health coverage, to make sure there is financing there. But it should ladder up to development. That is, for me, it's going to be where women have got the power to even finance. It becomes cheaper when a woman can even buy her own products without suffering financial crisis or a disaster. That's where we want to get to. So given where we are, and for us to get there, we will need donors to continue financing in a catalytic way some of those populations who will not be able to buy any products or purchase any services. We will need governments, and thank you, Amos, for the work that you do to ensure that universal health coverage is actually an issue in the countries where we work and domestic resource mobilization becomes a reality. For those of you who are in ministries of health, take a treasury retreat with your treasury to make sure that they release money. Members of parliament, they release money so that there is financing for family planning programs at a country level. And again, in countries as they transition to upper middle income countries and to developed countries, women will be able to, through insurance, will be able to finance their own products. Lastly, private sector. There is so much money that could come from how we optimize our systems effectively so that private sector financing can also come to the fore through entrepreneurship, economic development programs that actually increase the tax revenue of a country so that women are in a better position. We will get there by 2030, especially with Supraya, World Bank investing catalytically and smartly in the countries where they work. Thank you.
Very smartly articulated, Dr. Samo. I think we have talked about domestic investments and resource mobilization at the country level, and this is really also important. We're not always depending on the donors and always not looking forward to all the external financing, rather than generating local finance is really very important. I'm going to Honorable Dr. Ntara. I have actually a similar question for you, and looking at from the domestic resource perspective, no country actually has an infinite pool of funds to invest in tackling all of the challenges that it faces in their communities. So my first question is, I'm also very, very curious, why is family planning on the Tanzanian development agenda, and how is it resourced? I'll give you a second chance.
Okay. The government, in fact, the government has a budget of about 14 billion to the family planning. But still, there is an increase of 10% from the domestic resources. They are told to finance the family planning program. We also have private sectors. We are also taking them on board to family planning. So I know that this one also is not enough, but we still depend on donors. We depend on donors still to help us finance this family planning. Yeah.
Yeah, like we said before, that no success is achieved alone. No, we need to go a long way, and we need to go all together. And if I could add, what do you think that was most effective in terms of getting the attention policymakers in Tanzania, and actually meaning it's getting the attention of policymakers for them to recognize that access to family planning is an urgent national imperative?
Yeah, thank you so much. And indeed, that's why I'm here. I need GPA. That's why I'm here. But again, the parliamentarian, as I said that parliamentarian women, after seeing what was happening in the rural areas, a lot of rape, sodomizing, gender violence. So it was the women who started talking about this family planning. And let me just caution you that we normally see that girls are the one who are affected, girls or women. But today, I want to tell you, even boys are at risk. We talk about girls only and leave aside boys. We talk about girls and leave aside boys. But today, you go to church, boys or girls, they go to church, you find that they are raped. They go to mosque, they are raped. In school, boys and girls are raped. At home, the same problem. So it was from all this made the parliamentarian, especially women, to shout and to say that, oh, no, we need family planning, we need this, the gender violences, we need this rape and whatever is done bad in the society to go away, I don't know why, but in our country we think all these are done because people think it's because of the blessing. Maybe if they take a boy and use a boy, they get blessings, and sometimes due to drugs which are normally spread in the world, I should say. And sometimes it's witch believings. They believe in witchcraft. So that's why our children, and especially girls and boys, are at a very, very risky type of life. So that is what is moved the parliamentarian, as I said, especially women, to say that, no, we need this policy of family planning to be taken aboard.
So great. Sometimes I actually use the term that family planning is a life planning. And you were just mentioning that it's not just contraception, it's not just like methods, it's everything around our society, everything we deal in a daily life. Thank you for joining this. Yes?
Sorry, I said family planning also goes with it goes hand in hand with the healthy of the children.
Absolutely, it does.
That's why I've said that we need to take this seriously. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Antara. Supriya, we actually read, this is a very sensitive question. We read more and more about how civil society is under threat by governments in some of the countries. The NGO host investment from the GFF that PI is stewarding put civil society advocates working in coalition at the center of change and accountability. How is this being received by the GFF country governments? And do you think this is the way forward for how the GFF affects and sustains change?
Thanks for that question. So in terms of how is this being received by governments, I think we have lots of support from very, very forward-thinking governments that see CSOs also as a key part of their strategy to achieve their goals. The government of Senegal, the government of Central African Republic, Cameroon, Uganda, Bangladesh, of course. So we really do need that goodwill from the governments. But look, I mean, we've had civil society and civil society organizations around for decades. And they have been around and participating in the health sector for decades. I think the difference is that today we have a moment where we actually have an architecture within which to work with CSOs. I think countries have frameworks within CSOs can operate legally and without challenge. We have stronger and stronger networks and coalitions of CSOs, which PAI thankfully works with. So why is that good for the GFF? Well, we actually have several entry points that we can tap. And we see that our catalytic funding and efforts can actually go to institutionalizing the role of CSOs in all the different functions that we've talked about today, so that it's not just that we tick a box when we want to develop an investment case and say, let's make sure CSOs are in the room. No, we want CSOs to be there, as a permanent feature of the landscape of development. So in the monitoring function, in the prioritization function, in the annual budgeting process, ministries of finance should be looking for CSOs to sit with them and ministries of health and the donors in the room to tell them, who are we missing out? Where is that equity angle and where are those voices? So to work on this institutionalization agenda, I think we have three levers. So one is we can incentivize governments directly to work with CSOs in more formal and structured ways. So one, we encourage every government to have an inclusive multi-stakeholder country coordination platform of sorts, and in several countries we're actually seeing subnational platforms at provincial levels, state levels. So we do expect CSOs to be very visible and active in those platforms. And we have discussions every time we go to country, we meet. So this is an ongoing topic of how to strengthen these platforms, and we can incentivize that. We give TA, we can build capacity in governments to make those platforms more effective. The second is we can do this. We can work through organizations like PAI, who can then work with those networks and coalitions in country. We could never do that. We could never reach so many NGOs like PAI can. So, it's just a matter of efficiency, and so we can continue to do that, and we look forward to those kinds of partnerships. And finally, we have a large multi-stakeholder partnership globally. It's a formidable list of partners, of multilaterals, bilaterals, private sector, UN agencies, and we can actively lobby them to invest more in CSOs in countries to achieve our joint goals.
Thank you so much. I would really advocate here on this stage. How about shifting, encouraging to influencing the governments in terms of engaging CSOs? That would really be something great for the advocates to engage more with GFF and platforms like this. Because when you influence the government, it is really something they hear you. And when you encourage the government, it's something, oh, okay. So we want this okay to be yes, okay. Thank you so much. Now I go back to Nabiha. Nabiha, there are actually great needs and remains for family planning and the sexual reproductive health needs of communities. So the two questions, actually, two-part, you can answer all together. What do investments in civil society do for furthering goals of GFF FP 2030 and our movement as a whole? And number two is how to build on that. What do you hope for as we carry forward together? You say, like, together we achieve more.
So to the first question, civil society makes the goals achievable. Civil society and advocates, we're the truth seekers and the truth speakers, and we're the protectors of progress. And Supriya said it beautifully when she said that civil society is a permanent feature. And that is especially true and lays, is top of mind for me in my home country of Pakistan. We have had, as you all know, a devastating flood. It now will lead to a protracted public health crisis, a protracted economic crisis, and those most affected. And of course, this also is a crisis and has huge implications on any advances on sexual and reproductive health and rights and access to family planning. And who showed up? Who showed up to help? Who showed up were local civil society advocates, local civil society members who, yes, are focused on advancing family planning, who are focused on mitigating climate change, who are focused on advancing nutrition. These are the same networks. And so they are a permanent feature, using Supriya's words. And I think we have to think about civil society in that view is they may be activated and deployed for a certain issue area, but these are the same people, the same networks, the same perspectives that stand up and step forward on other issue areas, and certainly in times of crisis like we have in Pakistan right now. In terms of hopes, well, I have many hopes, but we probably don't want to go through all of them, but there are a few that really stand out. The first is this piece on how are we supporting the institutions of individual CSOs. And this is not just the piece around capacity development and training. Let's also talk about money, right? Let's talk about money. And just as organizations will invest in issue area advocacy, will invest in conducting research, will invest in policy priorities, are you investing in the infrastructure of the organizations that are implementing that work, that are going to hold the government accountable when there is a great policy win to say a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, did you deliver on that? We need these institutions to thrive and stay the course. And the second one, which is probably going to be music to your ear, Shekat, is the framing of this conversation, the framing of our call to action around universal access to family planning. I'm a daughter of a scientist, and I had a tough father as a scientist, and he would say, okay, you've got something that you want to do, so what? What impact is that going to have? We have to ask ourselves and ensure that forward, when we're having the discussion around accessing family planning, extending access to sexual and reproductive health and rights, we have to be able to answer the question, so what? What happens when we achieve that win? And the way we define the so what and what happens when we achieve that win, I believe needs to be through the youth lens. Because if this is framed through the priorities and the realities and the concerns of young people and what they are facing forward, if we can get it right for young people, we will get it right for the rest of the community. And we've seen that time and time again across a range of sectors, but I think that is one really critical piece is let's not keep framing it the way family planning and the way SRHR has been framed for the past decades. Let's take a pause and say, is the message sticking? And if it's not sticking, it's time to talk to some new people.
Wow. At some point I got lost, and it's great, when a moderator is lost. Let me come back, because it is, I would really thinking, how about this panel doesn't stop here, and we have like infinite time to continue the discussion. I was really thinking about, how about we have like 1 minute and 15 seconds, each of us, starting with Amos down this line. And this is basically how about voices, because voices is a part of the title of this session. And let us share what voice do you think we should bring into our movement, and why. The why is for 15 seconds. Amos.
Thank you. 15 seconds will not do me justice. But anyway, quick one. Yeah. So Saikat, I think what is important right now is to ensure that we bring in the local private sector. And I would like to even urge Dr. Dube in terms of you getting commitments from local private sector. I think they are very important in terms of the role that they play at country level. Once we are able to galvanize that and they have a well-coordinated system, we will be able to see that their contribution towards family planning is actually very much highlighted. I think we are missing that gap in terms of how they are contributing the data to our family planning programs. If we bring them to play an important role, I think it will be very important. I mean, we've heard like at global level, the GFF and other platforms, I think the private sector is quite active, but what are we doing at country level to ensure that we bring them together, they are galvanized, and they are reporting as part of the system that we are supposed to get the data from? I think that will really, really help in that area. Secondly, we need to ensure that the ministries of finance, ministries of community development, ministries of education are part of this sector. I mean, Ministry of Finance, definitely for resource purposes. Ministry of Community Development, they own people. They work with everyone else. Right now, I think a number of countries are looking at cash transfers. That is an opportunity that we have to sensitize people to ensure that as part of family planning, they are able to utilize that space for program development in terms of cash transfers. The Ministry of Education, they own a lot of young people. They are the ones who are educating. How do we bring them in to ensure that the information that they are giving young people is consistent? Once that is done, we'll be able to have a consistent message that will help the Ministry of Health to ensure that service delivery is actually done. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I was really looking forward to Minister of Magic sometimes. Like Minister of Magic, we need to find them. Talk about a magic ministry, like that should do it. Like, exactly. Done. Let's go to Nabiha.
I couldn't agree more. I had ministers of finance on my list as well. We need to be talking to the ministers of finance, and we also have to make the economic case for why these investments matter, both in the short term but also in the long term. I also think we need to be much better about bringing researchers and those who collect data, track data to ensure that the kind of research and the kind of evidence that we are putting forward is actually in response to the needs of shaping policy and case making for these kinds of investments. And the third voice is the networks of other sectors, where family planning and SRHR are really central to achieving gains in nutrition, to achieving gains in youth empowerment, in gender equality. To my point earlier on in the conversation, we need many voices, and it needs to be more than us. And I think the extension of saying, who else is going to come to the next conference, the next ICFP? Can we have a huge contingent representing education? Can we have a huge contingent representing nutrition? We need some new and additional people.
Great. And of course, we'll need the Ministry of Magic.
And the Ministry. And please invite the Ministry of Magic.
Yes. Honorable Dr. Antara.
Okay, again, apart from Ministry of Health, Finance and Education, I think we need Ministry of Social and Community Development, take abroad. But again, if there is organization of people with disability who have been for so long been neglected in this family planning program, you find them saying, I need a child. I need to go to the clinic, but with their disability, they are looked at it like that. You know, one was saying, if I move with my scratches to the hospital, people will look at me and say, is this one also doing that thing? You see? So we need to take this one. We need to take this abroad. And then female who need IVF, I don't know whether they are in an organization or in a, so they also need support, because this IVF is very expensive. Very expensive, so the FP program should consider these people. And it is it's a problem, in fact, psychologically. They are not healthy psychologically. So we need to take these people on board so that we have, all of us will live in a happy life. Otherwise, thank you very much, UNFPA, GPA and EPA and other organizations for making this program possible. I was blind, I was really blind in this, but now I can see.
Wonderful, wonderful, so powerful. I really loved when I was in Zanzibar earlier this year. The beautiful country with beautiful people and, with a lot of commitment makers like you. We really look forward to the beauty of your commitment when we realize them in the next ICFP upcoming. We go to FP 2030, of course, Dr. Dubey.
Of course, we are commitment makers, so we need everybody on board. So if we get all those people on board, I'll be a happy woman, But I want to just add, my first constituency was actually to get people with the purse, like the ministers of finance and private sector on board. So I'm not going to repeat what they said, but that's top of my agenda. I've been visiting countries and I'm seeing that we are leaving some people behind. And these people include refugees and migrants, especially undocumented migrants in countries, because they are being left behind. So we need constituencies, for example, from IOM and then in humanitarian settings to actually come on board and help us with this agenda. As we sit here, COP27 is happening. Those who are having conversations, networks who are having conversations to expand this narrative, we need to understand what they are doing and bring them on board. And lastly, feminists, because the agenda that has been dichotomized between family planning and feminism, etc., I think it's a false dichotomy. And we need actually to make sure they come on board, because this is also about gender equality so that we can achieve economic development that's inclusive for women.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. No commitment should be made without the inclusivity of all the constituencies that you mentioned. Thank you so much. Dr. Supriya, what GFF commits?
Thank you. So, yeah, first on my list is ministries of finance, ministers of finance. I mean, I'm the GFF, so I couldn't go without saying that. But I want to say more specifically, I want them to be in the room with all of you guys. I want them to be in the room with CSOs, with ministries of health, with donors. I think we have no problems talking with ministries of finance. We talk to them all the time, but we end up having separate conversations, and we never have a joined up, aligned conversation. So I think that's really important. That's my added value to that piece. But I will also say we need more women in leadership. We have, in terms of women in government and in the bureaucracy, we need women in leadership. We need female parliamentarians. We need female leaders of CSOs. We need female providers. I mean, here we are saying we're working for women, adolescents, and children, and we keep dealing with men who just can't possibly represent this constituency well enough. I hate to say, but no offense. So I really do think we need women in leadership so that also adolescents can have role models in this. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for all the panelists presented today? And I was really curious about how change is made. And I was thinking, when we're talking about change makers and trackers, I was thinking where change is made. Change is made locally. And when it connects global spaces, it's called local. So change is actually global. And look at this panel. We start from local and global, and this is such a bridge. And thanks to PRI for your support, and GFF and AP 2030, all your supports to the government, civil society, and all the actors present in this room and beyond. Absolutely, we don't have any problem talking to the ministers of finance, and of course, we're not actually leaving behind anyone, not even the Minister of Magic, not even the Minister of Hope. Sometime maybe in the near future, people will be calling for a Ministry of Hope. We hope a lot. A lot of hope is actually made on this stage and down there. But how do we track those? People and communities commit, follow the commitments, and they hope that the commitments are realized. And if there is a Ministry of Hope, I hope this realization could also be tracked down someday. I would take just another minute that progress, as we summarize from the points, progress is not made alone. We all together, including you and the people joined behind this room and from live stages and many other places, all together we achieve this change. And I sometimes talk to my colleagues and say, let's work in team. And this team is together, everyone achieves more. So from today's panel, can we ask all the audience and everyone on the stage to rise and say something that you will follow me? I'm not misguiding you in any way. We are stronger together. Yes. See you in next ICFP.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today, we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programming. And today, we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon. Hello everyone, welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programming. And today we had Women of Impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak out.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon.
So the power of family planning is agency for women. It's choice for women. It's control. It's autonomy. When you've got that tool in your hands, you can do so much more. I believe that women can do so much more if they're supported, if they've got the tools, if they exist in an environment that enables them to do just that. And family planning does just that.
The power of family planning is the power of choice. The power to choose whether and when to become pregnant is key for women and girls to claim their fundamental right to bodily autonomy.
I believe in the power of family planning. The power of family planning can deliver multiple outcomes. It can reduce maternal mortality by up to 44%, reduce infant and child mortality by up to 38%, empower women to make informed decisions, increase per capita per GDP between 31 to 65%, and together with girl education is the most powerful mitigation strategy for climate change. The power of family planning is in achieving multiple outcomes all at once.
The power of family planning, for me, is that great ability to make sure that women and girls realize their full potential. Individuals are able to determine the number and the size of their families, the number of children that they want, and how they want to space that. I think for me, it's one of the things that really a powerful tool at the individual level, at the household level, really being able to allow those decisions to be made. And for individuals and couples, knowing that there are tools that are available through modern contraceptive methods to be able to empower and equip them with that ability to make those decisions.
I feel the power of family planning is
self-care and self-determination on what is good for you as a woman, and how are you projecting your own life as a woman in whatever you're doing. So I just feel it's self-care, and you determine, it's your own decision, the autonomy to decide. So that's, for me, that's the power of family planning, even though I'm beyond that age of, I'm simply advocating for it, but as you can see, I am not a practicing, woman using contraceptives or anything. But with time, I just feel it's really about me as a woman, and how do I see myself 10 years from now? What do I really want to be, so that I'm not held back? Yeah.
The power of family planning is the world where gender equality is a reality, and where women is empowered to decide on her reproductive choices.
The power of family planning is endless possibilities. So not only for the individual, it frees women and girls from the burden of having an unwanted, unintended, or mistimed pregnancy, but it also allows for families to be able to properly take care of the children, send them to school, and make sure that they fulfill their potential.
The power of family planning is actually in its ability to change the lives of individuals, the lives of communities, the lives of whole nations for the better.
The power of family planning for me is that it has the potential to boomerang national and community development. Without family planning, I do not think there's going to be any development, because women's health is very much related to family planning, and family planning is so much in line with community development. In my work, I have seen so many women that if not because of family planning, they wouldn't have been able to be where they are. They wouldn't have been able to advance their careers especially, and also contribute positively to the community as they are now. The power of family planning is really the power of development.
So family planning, I really consider it a superpower that gives women and men and couples the control that they need over that aspect of their lives, reproduction, so that they can make plans for all aspects of their lives. If they want to, more education, if they want to work, all those different things, it just gives them control.
So for me, when you ask me the power of family planning, I feel like the power of family planning is the empowerment. I think as a young person and as a woman, it has really, really empowered me in making decisions with regard to my reproductive health, whether I want to have babies, when I want to have babies, and even how I want to have babies. And I think that's very important, for me as a woman and where I come from.
En fait, je suis médecin, donc j'ai eu à pratiquer comme médecin et comme médecin chef de district à gérer des programmes de planification familiale au niveau dans les zones rurales et même urbaines. Juste quelque chose que j'avais vécu personnellement, j'avais eu à recevoir une dame d'une trentaine d'années, 32 ans, et qui avait 13 gestes, c'est-à-dire elle était tombée enceinte 13 fois et 11 fois elle a accouché, donc 11 parts. Et elle a eu à perdre des fausses couches pour 2 fois. Et pour sa dernière grossesse, elle a eu une hypertension artérielle à l'issue de sa grossesse. Et quand on a regardé son tableau, on s'est dit que si elle tombe à nouveau en état de grossesse, elle peut risquer sa vie.
Le pouvoir de la planification familiale aujourd'hui, c'est de permettre à des millions de femmes, de villes comme de campagnes, de pouvoir avoir facilement accès aux services de PF et pouvoir contrôler leur santé de la reproduction et pouvoir échanger librement de leurs droits reproductifs avec leur communauté, avec leur mari, de choisir avec qui aller et quand est-ce qu'elles veulent aussi faire des enfants.
Family planning is life-saving intervention.
The power of family planning is to reducing maternal mortality.
Power of family planning is empowerment of the individual.
The power of family planning is choice and autonomy.
So to me, family planning means life in its complementarity.
Well, the power of family planning is actually empowerment, especially for women and girls. With family planning, we as women, girls, actually have a lot. It's like an untapped resource that we didn't see. Like you can choose for it's a choice for yourself, for your body. Yeah, so it's powerful. It's more of empowerment beyond just education.
I always relate this to my own individual story, seeing my mom being able to access these commodities and understanding the importance of accessing them and planning for her family, something that helped her raised us the best way she could as compared to some of her peers.
The power of family planning is to support women to make choices about the way they want to progress in their life. They may want to delay a pregnancy so they can advance a little bit further in their careers and then be able to step back later and have a child, and for it not to have a detrimental impact in how they progress in the future.
The power of family planning is the courage to confront the challenges in the field and continue to make a difference.
And family planning is one of the very systematic window that the government can use to deliver more and more for youth, and especially the generation to come, and to achieve sustainable development goal and ICPD goals and everything.
Hi, my name is Janelle Vayin, and as a reproductive justice advocate, I often think about how fortunate I am to have the power to decide my future. For me, deciding to use the implant was one of the most powerful decisions that I've made. I started using the implant while I was in college because I wanted to enjoy my sexual life and not worry about having to pause my studies. My grandmother and mother did not have access to modern contraceptives, and I can only imagine what their lives would have been like if they had the choice. I think having access to modern contraceptives allowed me to be able to obtain my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. This is why I think access to universal family planning can have a multi-generational impact on communities across the world.
Meaningful access to family planning services and reproductive health actually means as a youth I am able to practice safe sex and avoid any unwanted pregnancies or any consequences that may come with lack of access to these services. Actually, if I do not have access to sexual reproductive health services and family planning, that means as a youth, I am not able to enjoy my sexual rights, or I'm not able to enjoy my reproductive health needs. And as a result of this, if you look at it in the long run, where access of these services are limited, it means there'll be poor planning even at the household level. And this presents a risk at large to the population because we may be at a risk of getting population outburst. And in the long run, when you look at our economy may suffer a state where there is distribution imbalance, where resources are getting constrained, and whatever the government is providing in terms of service delivery may not be effective. And because of this, literally, I feel there's need to encourage our government to make family planning and reproductive health services at the center of discussion so that we are able to look at our demographic in a country in a way that we can have a projection that can be easily understood, and that the government can plan for its population with a bigger picture of what is happening.
Access to a wide range of contraceptive options has been a powerful force in my life because of the healthy timing and spacing of pregnancy that I have witnessed among adolescent girls and young women. Losing access to family planning would subject us to poor mental and reproductive health outcomes and financial difficulties. Universal access to family planning reduces the dependency ratio, therefore positively impacting the community's economy. Centering family planning discussions is our powerful approach towards universal health coverage because family planning saves lives of adolescent girls and young women. Family planning reduces the financial hardships of individuals, families, and communities. Thank you.
Family planning represents one of the most crucial pillars on autonomy, not only regarding to the body, but also the possibility to decide for oneself future. Reproductive